me, Andre, and Heath were out here shed hunting. The one side scored 126.
Oh, my God.
That was the deer that Andre was after going into the season. I wasn't in the stand 30, 40 minutes. I texted him. I said, hey, that non-typical's up here running around. And he texted me back, and he said, are you serious? I was like, yeah, can I shoot him? Absolutely not. So...
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, we've been using Deer Grow products for a long time. The Plot Start and Plot Boost, more recently Plot Till. Now we've got 3 new liquid fertilizers that have been put in the mix that will cover everything we could want for a food plot program.
It's huge, man. The more food plotting we do, it's like, man, the liquids just make sense. Like whether it's herbicides or the Plot Start and Plot Boost, and now the fertilizers getting mixed in. It's like, man, I can combine all of those in certain cases and do less passes for more results.
I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, like you said, less passes. If you're out there treating your beans with glyphosate in the summertime, you can mix in this fertilizer, do that all at once. You have the boost in there that helps the metabolism. It's all about efficiency when we're talking about food plots. And really the big difference on these liquid fertilizers is you're bypassing some of these soil limitations, pH limitations, the soil type. In a lot of cases, we talk about dry fertilizers only being available for 17% of what you put down in the first year. These liquid fertilizers straight into the plant are 90% available in the first year. Huge difference in what you're going to see in growth.
It's huge. And so right now you can use code HUNTR15 for 15% off any of the Deer Grow products on their website. And as always,
better food plots, bigger deer. And we're back.
Hey. Hey-o. Oh, yeah.
Hey-o.
Oh, yeah.
Hey-o. That's your role.
I guess I'm ready. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. HUNTR Podcast, episode 2 or 3 or 2 or 4, something like that. We're not
low
quite
200.
Sure.
Yeah, low 200.
Yeah. Still in the wolf den, a.k.a., as Andre says, the living room.
Yeah, day 2 of the Mobile Hunter Roadshow. I guess the day of the roadshow, but the Whitetail Addictions, you guys have been here for, yesterday was kind of like the meet and greet and hanging out, and that was a lot of fun. So today's the actual roadshow, and we just snuck away for a few hours to chat. So.
Yeah. So you should do your part. I don't think you did last time.
Hey, thank you guys for being here. Yeah, I definitely did do it because we're, out of fish out of water here. But thank you guys for being here wherever you're listening, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Give us a like, follow, or subscribe, whatever's appropriate for the channel. One of those will give you a notification. We drop these every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And as of recently here, probably some Thursdays as well, just so we can get caught up. So if you've written us on Instagram DM or the website, I know I'm backed up, at least on
in your bowels?
On the email. Well, travel will do that, but
we've basically eaten only Mexican food the entire trip.
Yeah, we're basically Mexicans at this point. So, lot of salsa, lot of salsa. So we will get back to you guys. Appreciate you reaching out, and here we go.
And while you're at it, we've got Whitetail Addictions here as well. So if you are on YouTube, go ahead and head over and give their channel a like and subscribe.
So Whitetail Addictions and Troy Pottenger. Troy, you've been on the show before.
Yep.
And us, Justin Hollandsworth.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
Hollywood, as they call you, right?
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
You got the mountain man in Hollywood.
Yeah, so you got
Mountain man in Hollywood.
We've got what? Idaho and Ohio.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. 2 very far spectrums from each other.
Sure. So, Troy, how do you guys know each other? I know it's been some time you guys have been friends, right? And when I asked you, I was like, who do you want to, you're like, I got to have Hollywood on.
Yeah. Justin, I give Justin credit, but we go way back to the Next Buck days.
Mm-hmm.
Jared or Doty. Like, Jared did some phenomenal stuff in the hunting industry.
Is Jared out here?
Yeah.
I've seen it.
And Jared,
and he's one that I would recognize from the Hill Country Bucks video.
Yeah, you're talking.
That's Jared.
Yeah. Jared got involved with us guys, but Justin, I give Justin the credit. He's the one that when I got involved with Justin with underneath Jared and Next Buck, Justin's the one that said, hey, Troy, we're going to get Whitetail Addictions fired back up. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. And Justin's like, Troy, let's go. Come with us.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I give Justin the credit for getting me into this family.
Yeah, because we had Whitetail Addictions going back, like in the 05, 06 time frame.
Heyday.
Yeah, when Adam Hayes was the producer of it then. And so when we had it going then, and I think we had 3 seasons, and then Sportsman's Channel went bankrupt.
Yeah, is that when they sold to Outdoor at that time, or was that when it became Intermedia?
Yes.
So that was the Intermedia change. Gotcha.
So then Whitetail Addictions went to the wayside at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So Then later, you know, and then Andre had sold Lone Wolf portable tree stands at that time, so we weren't doing anything. So Jared had Next Buck, which was part of which was Blood Brothers Outdoors before,
Right?
Which is where the Hill Country Bucks and stuff.
With Dan Infalt, Lee Gatsky, and Jared, and that's when like Swamp Bucks and Hill Country Bucks and then,
Farm Country.
Yeah, then
Farm Country Bucks.
We did Farm Country.
Yep.
You guys did Farm Country?
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
we did Farm Country.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then and I'd always said, I said, and Jared knew this, and Jared was always part of Whitetail Addictions anyways. I said, look, if Andre ever gets Whitetail Addictions fired back up again, do know that I'm going back to Whitetail Addictions, and that's where my roots are. That's how I get. That's how I got into this filming thing to begin with. So then the XOP thing came along, and Andre called me and said, hey, get the band back together again. We're going to get this thing fired up.
Yeah. Freaking love that.
So that's when I, and I'd met Troy through Next Buck.
Yep.
And through Jared and everything. So then that's when we started putting that back together again. Because at that point, Jared didn't want to produce any more of those videos because it was so time consuming to put all that together. Yep. And plus he was busy, he was busy with 3 kids and everything at the time. So,
that was primarily the Next Buck. I mean, what we recall of it, I don't know if it was Next Buck or the Blood Brothers, but we've definitely seen those DVDs. Was that the primary production or output for that, or was there also like a TV show and stuff?
No, it was just DVDs.
Just DVDs.
Okay.
DVDs. But there were more than like the Hill Country Bucks and stuff like that.
There were.
You guys were putting out like hunting content DVDs.
Yes. Yeah. There was a total of 3 of them.
Was it BUK Next Buck, or was it
BUK?
BUK.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I was this guy way out west that was hunting out of lone wolves before I knew these guys, because it was the only stand I could find that would work in the mountain, that would be quiet and be sufficient, and it worked incredible. So it was easy for me once I met Justin with all of his addictions background, because I freaking watched the show.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I'm this guy way out west in the mountains, guys, that I've been running Andre's shit since the early 90s. I shouldn't say that. Andre's great stands since the early 90s. So
he would say great shit.
Yeah, great shit. And Andre'd say the same thing. You're running my shit, don't run anybody's else.
My dad loves your shit.
But anyway, so when Justin and I got in contact, I was like, fuck, this is the stuff I need to get in, because this is what I use.
Yep.
And this is what's changed my life as a whitetail hunter out here on these cagey, sketchy mountain bucks that get hunted by predators. Like, all of a sudden, I had no issues with noise.
Yeah.
And I had stability.
Yep.
I wasn't hunting out of steel ever again.
Yeah.
So in the early 90s, I still have my stand. Like early 90s, I got in one. And from afar, and back in the day where there wasn't any social media really other than a forum, I'm following all of these guys. And then it just all matriculated into this union and friendship. And I'm like, yeah, I really want to be a part of this, because of the way Andre's product, without me even knowing him, changed my hunting.
So when XOP came back around, he said, hey, we're firing back up the Addictions crew, and it's going to be a promotional tool for XOP.
Yeah. So that was a way. Yeah, it was a way for us to just showcase how we were using those stands and stuff like that at that time.
Yep.
And so we did that for, I don't know, a couple years.
And Jared didn't come over yet. Did he still stay at the Next Buck stuff?
He was still doing some
thing.
of the Next Buck, but he was still part of
But he was
XOP
still
and
part of
everything,
us.
too.
He was.
Yeah. That's the one thing about the whole group. There's still a lot of guys that are just OG guys that have been here forever.
I know. You see him out there. And you know.
I mean,
what's his name in the saddle game? He's like, it's like, when did you start using saddles? He's like 83. I'm like, what?
One thing about Andre is when you get in with Andre, you don't ever want to leave.
Yeah.
You just don't want to leave because of the way you're treated, the quality of everything that Andre puts out, plus the way, the quality of the way you're treated. It's incredible.
It's the Italian Sicilian mafia.
You
can't get out.
You don't get out.
Even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I want to be here.
You'll
but
get out.
I also have to be here.
It's in a body bag if you want to get out.
You better be loyal. No, that's what I love about this family is we still adhere to loyalty.
Yeah.
And phenomenal product and brand. And like Justin was saying earlier, we don't like to be associated with anything, we want to be associated with excellence.
Yeah.
So if it's with you guys, if it's with Osseo, if it's with Vortex, whatever, and this isn't just a plug, we're only going for top shelf anybody and product.
Well, dude, I mean, you talk about what we were just saying pre-podcast in an industry that, from a content producer side, has not really been built like that, right? It's been built on who's going to pay me, and it's because at one point, whether you're on Sportsman or Outdoor, it was $200,000 in airtime to be on those channels. So it was
It's been heavily commercialized. I mean, that's what people know about the industry, like in the late 90s, maybe into the 2000s, when all the shows kind of became infomercials, and then all the products got bought by conglomerates, and then that's what it became. It's like everything was just like product. You
couldn't work with the best because the best maybe didn't have the money to pay you, and you needed money to be in those spaces. Now, obviously, with the digital side and everything, that it's changed, right?
Yeah. Well, now there's like the two worlds. Like Jeremy and I talk about, there still is like, is Addictions on any network TV show?
No,
just
on
YouTube
YouTube.
stuff.
Nope, just
on YouTube.
And we like that because
Well, and so are we. But what I was going to say is there's that whole world. Like they're still doing that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's Sportsman's Channel, there's Outdoor Channel, and not to take away from any of those guys that are on the platform. Like there's guys that do good stuff, but the platform inevitably it's changed. It's changed. It's not what it was. It doesn't have like the household, the eyeballs that it did. And so it's been interesting to see how there's like these two worlds now where like, oh, they're still doing that.
And we purposely, our sponsors are great with it. We don't have to do an infomercial and do big commercial. I mean, we're a soft sell. We're a very soft sell. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Justin?
Yep.
And that's what we've always wanted. If we're going to have sponsors, excellent partners, but also soft sell. We don't want to be we're not salesmen.
Well, and for the longest time, we didn't want sponsors.
Yeah.
We wanted to sell, our brand,
Yeah.
which was the Lone Wolf brand, and that's what we wanted to stick behind. And we didn't want to have to get into like, or feel obligated to, to do some of these sponsorships. But when we started to talk about it, because we started to have a few companies that were reaching out to us about that. Well, we were very selective too, of who, like because we're not going to use something that we don't want to use.
It's got to perform.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not using something that I wouldn't use on every day, hunting.
And I feel like we're kind of blessed in a sense that we don't feel like we have to, right?
Yeah.
It's like, listen, if the right whatever apparel, bow, except I'm going to use what I want to use. I don't have to have a sponsor for that.
Yeah, well, and we're old, and a lot of us are older guys too, and we're established, and we like if we want something, we're gonna go buy it,
especially for hunting. It's the thing that we're all like, this is it. This is what we want all year long. Like we're not going to just use some product because they're going to pay us a few bucks for it. Like we want the best.
And we talked to other companies too that they had some pretty good products and stuff, but I could you just get the sense sometimes of like just people that are going to be in your corner, that you're going to work with, and that you're going to have a true long-lasting relationship. And if I'll be honest with you, if I can't see that in a business aspect, then I'm out.
Yeah, it's not going to work. Well, I mean, I thought even like in our little kind of pre-speaker discussion out here, Cody's like, hey, listen, as Addictions guys, be watching in that crowd because there's some killers out there that we could recruit into this group. Like guys like that aren't in the industry are typically not thinking like that, right? It's like he wants that communication. He wants you to find some of these guys coming to the Mobile Hunter Roadshow because he's like, there's good dudes out there that need to be part of this family.
Yeah, which
I think is so cool, in this space.
Well, and going back on that is, we all started off there, right?
Yep.
I mean, nobody ever just starts off your killer on day one. I mean, it takes time to it takes a lot of mistakes along the way. And to me, I definitely feel like I want those other guys coming into it and the younger generation coming into it and stuff because, that's what Andre did for me years ago.
That's what he did for us.
Like 20 something years ago now, for whatever reason, him and I just hit it off and And he's, to be honest with you, he changed my life.
Well, tell us. I mean, how'd you meet Andre? Like, how'd this even happen?
So
you're an Ohio guy, right? So like, how's it come across?
So years ago, it was at a trade show, and I bought my first lone wolf. I bought a hand climber.
Mm-hmm.
And life-changing moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You're like, this is like a different thing.
And I remember seeing these ads of Lone Wolf. This was like, you're talking early 2000s. And I remember seeing these ads, and I remember seeing this, this picture of Andre with his black background with all these giant bucks all over this thing. And I remember just being that dude of like, man, I want to get to that point. I want to have those experiences, every one of those experiences that he had to kill those deer. I want that. But I don't know how to, at that point, I hadn't figured out. I killed a couple decent bucks at that point. And then him and I we hit it off. And he gave me his number at that show. And I remember sitting on that number for a while. I was like, man, I really want to call this guy because I got a lot of shit I want to talk to him about because I'm trying to figure out. And I finally mustered up enough courage to call him. And he picked right up, and we would talk every once in a while. And then sometime around I'd say 04, 05 time frame, he called me and said, hey, have you ever videoed your hunts? I'm like, no. He said, we're going to start this show called Whitetail Addictions. I said, I'm in. I bought a camera that week.
I'm in, man.
And didn't know shit on filming hunts. Yeah. I mean, and it was a rough go. Cost me a couple bucks along the way, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because you guys historically were all self-film, right?
All self-film,
even from the get-go.
Yeah, and we're pretty much all self-film today.
Pretty much still that way.
Yeah,
that's kind of our thing is being able to do it ourselves.
Same.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we've done the cameraman thing, and I know a lot of people are successful with it, but it's like that hunting situation is pretty intimate to us, even though I'm sure you guys love hunting together. Jared and I love hunting together. There's still
it would be, well, I mean, first of all, it's an impossible ask to find somebody who is as passionate and capable as you, has the same skill level as you are and is willing to give up that time and has the flexibility to come do it for us. Why would they do that? Yeah. Maybe someday, but and so we default to, first of all, not filming. We haven't filmed for a long time. It's our strong suit is shooting the shit. He's fine.
He's coming in.
He's fine.
Yeah. I'm in.
And so the podcast kind of came first, and we just kept in the field experiences to ourselves. We didn't film anything. Mm-hmm. And I think more recently we have felt convicted to be like, man, we have a lot of people who are interested in our season and want to be a part of it. Yep. And so I think we're excited for the first time to get back in and to show that to people. So we're going to just be doing some self-filming and to be intentional about stuff this year. It won't be a Heartland bow hunter quality production or anything like that, but we're I think excited. And from a cameraman standpoint, I'm a little bit excited about if Jeremy and I have the opportunity to film each other. That would be the one situation where who is that guy who is at the same skill level, who's willing to give the time, who is flexible, maybe not from a camera standpoint, but from, that part's pretty doable, I think.
Oh, and the dynamics.
So to film each other, it's not going to happen a lot, but I'm hopeful that it could happen. And for the first time, we have some opportunities where it's Illinois and Iowa, being the two where it's the chances are pretty good.
When I first started filming, it was just cool to be part of this group of killers. There's Andre and Adam Hayes and Adam Crumrin, and there was a group of guys.
So all those guys were part of this originally?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
The foundation was pretty incredible.
Yeah, Brad Davis, Jim Deppy, who we just lost just this past year. Jim passed away. Mm-hmm. But there was just a group of guys in there that were just stone
Was
cold
Dan
killer.
in there?
Dan was part of it. Infault was, he was in that.
Interesting.
There was a ton of guys that are now off doing their own thing and everything else.
Wouldn't you say, Justin, you were the young guy in that crew?
Oh, for sure, sure.
Yeah.
And I was just in there trying to soak up everything I could.
Be the sponge.
Yeah, and because these guys, at that point, I think Adam had killed a couple 200s, and so and Andre had killed. The number 2 and 3 when
they're
at
here.
that point.
Yeah, they're here.
Yeah, because he killed that one, the number 2, at that time. for the first season of that show.
Yeah.
And it was awesome just to be part of that. And I had access to all these guys, and they were all good dudes that I still talk to today.
It's interesting for me, an experience like this, and I guess this is not the first one, but to be in a room with a bunch of, again, everybody will tell you that dude's a killer. That dude's a killer. Because like in a lot of times, not that you're guarded, but it's like everybody wants to be like, well, deer do this, or and I've killed this and I've killed that. So there's a lot of like, okay,
yeah.
But so you're trying to be open, and it's also interesting when it's like, people have only ever seen us like on the podcast, and so I would say like if they know us, it's known for that. They're like, oh, these guys, there's some things that come with it, and same with you guys, and so it's interesting to try to be totally open, and it's like we want to help, and if people are like interested to know our opinion on things, but also I'm here to learn and to absorb, and so there's a lot of guys here that have killed a lot more shit than Jeremy and I have, so.
Have you ever seen that? Here's the one thing that I've always noticed about Andre, and I've seen this for years and years, especially doing show, doing trade shows and this and that, or doing all this kind of stuff. Andre's a listener. He'll sit back and he will listen to he'll ask maybe a guy that's only killed 4 or 5 good deer. I mean, and he's killed all these giant deer, and I've noticed him for years and years. Like he would call me to ask me a question after I'd killed a buck, and I'm like, why are you asking me a question? Like, you're the one of all these giant Boone and Crockett class deer. Like I want that information from you. But he's always a sponge, and he's always trying to learn. And he's 63 years old now, and he still does that. He still takes the time to stop and listen. And that's what's made Lone Wolf Custom Gear so successful as well, because Andre and Cody both take the time to listen to their customer base and design products that fit the customer and their also their own personal needs. So that's I think that's been you got products that are designed by hunters, and there's a lot of hunting companies out there. But that's not the case.
You got products designed by killers, like serious, strategic, everything matters type guys, and that's why Andre's stuff, in my opinion, is head and tails above the rest, because it has to work perfect for him.
Right. Yeah.
And when it comes from that experience and that background, I mean, that's where you want it to come from. That's where you want the technology to come from, is that his mind, and then Andre, and Justin's right, Andre listens to all of us guys, and he pulls stuff from all of us staff, little things, asks tons of questions to us on the side in private, like, hey, what do you think of this? That's what I love about Andre, is he has never ever been ever too cool for anybody.
Yeah,
he will talk to that 18-year-old young man or young lady out there just like he talks to any of us, and he'll just literally stop and listen.
He just wants to be a sponge on that stuff.
He picks up, and I think a lot of us are wired this way that are successful. You pick up on everything, every little body language, every little anything somebody says, but you're also watching their body language, and you get a feel for somebody that's genuine and being brutally honest versus somebody trying to bullshit. And Andre's great at that. Like you're not going to bullshit that guy.
Yeah.
And to be honest, you're not going to bullshit many guys on our staff, especially the guys that have been around when it comes to whitetails in general. And it's because of the massive amount of experience, obstacles, failures, and then successes that that end up, happening from those trials and tribulations over years, over decades.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's really cool about it, and to be in these settings. And it's like, we've talked about it numerous times, but when you go back to like, old school ATA days and stuff, like there were some really cool moments in some of that. But, to I think Jared's point, there really, even then, there were still two crowds, right? Yeah. There was like the faces of the industry that we all knew. And then there was this group of people that were like they were actually getting it done. It's just you didn't know who they were really, right? They were kind of off the radar type of thing. I think Andre was one of those guys. Like, sure, people knew Lone Wolf and they knew Andre. No, still today, I don't think nearly, even if you're a serious bow hunter or whitetail bow hunter, I don't think you realize how many designs of Andres are in other stands and things out there, right? That, he's dealing with on a daily basis from a patent standpoint or whatever. But even still, like, if you went back into the early to mid 2000s and you went into a group of like just whitetail bow hunters, you're like, hey, you know who Andre de Quisto is? I was probably one of those people. I'm like, no, who's that?
But if they said Lone Wolf,
yeah, then I knew.
Then you knew.
Then I knew. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So it was just, that was different. Or if they came and said, well, you know who, whatever, Bill Jordan is. Yeah, I know who Bill Jordan is. Right? So it's just, there was just two separate crowds that were getting it done in that standpoint.
Well, and Andre says it. He never did this. He initially never did any of this to become famous or get big.
Yeah.
It just happened. Yeah. Because he produced a product that was so superior that everybody from 40 years ago started copying him. He has been copied and mimicked for 40 years. Because when he started, Brad Davis told me that, Brad and I were talking the other day, and Brad goes, you realize, Troy, when Andre started in the 80s, he was so far ahead of the engineering and the spectrum out there that was available that it took 20 years for everybody to try to catch up and copy what he was doing. And that was back in the 80s. That stuck with me. It's like, you're right.
That's crazy.
Andre jumped into it because he wanted better for his personal hunting, and his mind was at a place that nobody else had been when it came to tree stand hunting.
He kind of talked about that was with us yesterday, and that, when he would build something, he'd use it through the season. The entire season, he's thinking about little things that just constantly could make it better. That's where he said, even when he had the first hang-on, he was using screw and steps. And then when it got cold and it was like everything you could do to try to get those in, he's like, this is stupid, which is why I made a stick.
Right.
Like it was just, all he was trying to do was
so wild. It seems like, because we've experienced it, it seems like such a basic concept. You're like, yeah, of course, like throw a strap around it and it does what it does. But like, to hear that he created the first one, like it's wild to think that didn't exist beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and us guys that go way back, you guys are younger, so that's all you guys have ever known.
Yeah.
That's been exposed to you since you guys started hunting.
Yeah.
Those are options that are out there.
Yeah.
And Justin's a little younger than me, but even, Justin remembers these days, that shit wasn't even available when we were young.
Yeah.
When I was in the 80s as a teenager, wanting to hunt whitetails, you had a screw-in step and an old steel stand, or you built one out of wood.
Yeah.
And that's what you did.
Yeah, those are...
I built a lot of tree stands out of 2x4s and plywood.
Same.
Me too.
Same.
You did.
I missed that.
Yeah. No, it was like I told Jared.
The very first stand I ever hunted out of was. Do you remember that gorilla?
Yeah.
It was like a gorilla.
With the net. The net seat.
No, didn't have a net. It was just a small standard.
That one though.
You're talking about that was the first stand I ever climbed into.
Oh yeah.
And so it's kind of a funny story because I was a kid and I found one. My neighbor had some hung in the woods behind her house, and we used to like build forts and stuff back there. And I remember seeing one. In hindsight, it's probably in a pretty good spot. And I was like, I think that's a tree stand. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. And my buddy's like, you won't climb it. And I was like, the heck I won't.
Oh, yeah.
So I climbed it and I sit down on the base of it, like where your feet go. And I'm like, how is this going to keep you dry? I thought it was like a canopy or something. I had no idea that was like that. Because you look at it, I'm like, that's clearly not a seat, right? Yeah, it was the first tree stand I ever climbed. But then we hunted out of those gorillas because that story I tell about blowing all the deer on the way. I hunted this little orchard. My dad and I went in and hung the stand on like a permission property, and it was one of those gorilla stands. It was a hang-on stand. I had sticks.
Did it have the back and the arms on that gorilla or no?
No, it was just like a real basic collapsible hang-on, like the ones that turned into like the $99 deals that you would buy.
I think mine was like, was it like Comfort Zone brand or something? It was like $20 hang-ons like back then.
Yeah, they used to be like $29.99.
Like dirt cheap hang-ons. My first
I've had some break on me, and they were rough.
The first time I was ever mobile was I had a Summit Climber. It was 33 pounds Summit Climber, and I'd lug that thing through and rake up a tree and rake down a tree. My dad's first climber was built out of a stop sign he cut down. you know. And
does he still have that by chance, or do you?
It's priced. Well, it's
you should try to find that.
It was in a tree. He had a 12-foot ladder going up to it. Because at that point, like, it was a little bit too shaky to climb, so he just made it into a lock on at that point. Yeah, but you could still see the bottom, like it was, you know, stop sign on the bottom of it. And
that's awesome.
But yeah, I mean,
no nut eyes required.
Yeah, it was like stop right here, there it is. Yeah, and I remember as a kid being cool because I built like all my stands were out of 2x4s and stuff, right? And so like I just remember how cool it would be as like whatever a 14 or 15-year-old kid when my dad's like, yeah, I'm not going out tonight. Oh, I'm going to his fucking stand, you know. So I wouldn't go to mine, I'd go into his, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill one out of this thing. But it was like those are my two options. There were no other options. That's all that existed.
That's what I mean. All those guys did back in the day. Like my dad was never a hunter, but my grandpa was a big hunter. He's a big traditional archer, and so that's what I always, you know, growing up, for the longest time, I shot a recurve because that's just what my grandpa did. Because he was.
That's how I started too. Because my dad had a recurve. That's what we had.
And we just he didn't shoot. He never, you know, he didn't shoot a compound or whatever, and he was friends years ago. Roger Rothar used to live in Ohio. My grandpa was friends with him. He lived about a half an hour from us or whatever. And I remember going over there as a kid and remember seeing some of those big mounts and stuff. But I don't remember like really talking to Roger or whatever. Right. But I remember those guys being friends. But you know, I was always just following my grandpa around all the time. I mean, wherever he, you know, if he was hunting, I was just dying to go or find out what happened or whatever. But that's all we ever did was build stands out of 2x4s and plywood. And
so did we.
That's all you ever did then. I mean, I don't remember getting into like a metal tree stand until it was probably when I was in high school. My wide receivers coach dad was making climbers in his little shop. And these things were like freaking 80, 100 pounds. I mean, you had to be lifting some weights and stuff.
Yeah, just to move it
around. And so, and that was like my first exposure to anything like that. But they were kind of death traps too, though.
Mobile hunting for me back in the late 80s, early 90s, before I got a hold of Andre's stands, was a pack frame. Because I come from the West where you pack everything out of the mountains on a pack frame. And then you loaded your wooden tree stand up on the pack frame, and you hiked into the mountains and you hung that 50 to 60 pound wooden tree stand. And we were trying to build them smaller, but you know what? That wood weighs a lot.
So I imagine the wood came from just lack of, like, most people don't have access to like a machine shop, right?
We're not going to be out there welding something.
Yeah, we're not welding.
And deal. So we were just like figuring it out and figuring out a way to get in a tree.
I assume most people figured there was a better material. Like, wood's probably not the move, but it's what I have.
Well, I'll just be honest, we freaking weren't going to go. I didn't grow up rich. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. Right. We were like, you make do with what you got. I mean, that's how I grew up, guys. My dad was a logger. My mom was a teacher, and I had no problem. We didn't know any different. 50 to 60 pounds was like, no problem. I'm freaking 20-some years old.
Just strap it on and roll.
Freaking put it on, and this is cool because I can literally walk up to that ridge today a mile away and hunt that deer that walked out in that clear cut, glassing him two nights ago. So I joke around on Instagram stories and shit, but every now and then I'll go old school and I'll throw something on my pack frame. What people don't understand is that's my roots.
Yeah, that's how.
So I just do it like just to kind of do it like I did it once this summer. I said, screw it. I threw an alpha on an old pack frame and a bunch of sticks, and I said, I'm gonna go put one up just because I remember those days of that work that you put in to do it, and now I'm just so streamlined and blessed to run a 7-pound setup or an 8-pound setup to where I still want to remember where I came from. And when you go from 50, 60 pounds on your back and a mile into the mountains to a tree versus 10 pounds on your back and a mile up into the mountain to hunt a tree, you appreciate that shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like it means a lot to a guy like me, and I have a great appreciation for what Andre has done for the whole entire, people don't even realize it, but what he has done for the whole entire whitetail community for decades is there's nobody that's impacted as much from a tree stand and a big buck killing point of view, in my opinion. And he never was out on the mainstream old ways of being seen on TV.
Right.
For, until the 2000s. And then, you like that you came from that far to where you are now, but I still do like to remember that, you know what, I could do that. And it didn't slow me down.
Yeah.
But it is a lot nicer now.
A little different from Ohio too.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are you where you're at? Is there big, like where Jeremy's at, like Meigs County? Is it like big?
So I live north of Columbus.
Yep.
But then I have a farm like the southeastern part of.
Yeah, so
of
towards
Ohio.
Maine.
Yeah, towards you.
So more timber ridges down on the southeast. Then, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to where you're in Columbus is like farm country.
Yeah,
correct?
it's all flat. Just small little wood lots, a lot of fence rows, stuff like that.
Can't help but feel like pretty meek when compared to Troy's like walking. I know when I mean, we've done some more now. Like, granted, a lot of what we're hunting is still farm ground. I mean, if we can, because we're after a particular class of buck that's where they are. We've done some harder hunts and stuff. Like the Nodak hunts are tough and stuff, but what you're doing is like on a different level. And so when you're saying that stuff, and it's to try to compare it to like our access in Ohio, I'm like, well, yeah, I've got a mowed trail. You know what I mean? 200 yards up that fence line, with a pre-hung scent, and half the time, I think
it gives me good perspective. For example, to talk about what you're talking about there, I was with Mike the other day, and we're looking at a piece that one of our staff guys going to hunt next year, and Mike was letting me give him my perspective on this 500 acres that we were breaking down. We went and broke it down for 6 hours. And I said, Mike, that's a piece of cake. You come off that east side, you'll have that east entrance, you walk up that fence line, you go up that hill, you set up. And he was just like, you're right. It's really not that bad. I said, Mike, you're 20 years younger than me. You're in freaking phenomenal shape. And if he would have grown, Mike, any of these guys would have grown up out where I grew up, you just did it. You just do you play the cards the hand you're dealt.
Yeah.
So, and Mike was like, I noticed yesterday we were talking about it, he looked at me and he goes, you're freaking right. He goes, I'm in the best shape of my life. That extra work right there gives me the perfect access and exit to make versus taking the easier way in.
Sure.
That might cut your odds down on the buck you're wanting to kill.
Yeah.
The Hunter Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
What can we say, man? Another year back with Hoyt. We're both shooting RX8s. I'm shooting 70 pounds in the bourbon, which I love bourbon.
That's great.
And you're shooting 80 pounds in the straight black.
Blacked out as always, man. I got so I'm shooting the 500 grain Easton Arrow this year. And at 80 pounds, I'm flinging that thing at like 300 feet per second. I mean, it's deadly. Put a water buffalo in front of me and he's done.
I mean, we shot it earlier. You literally put an arrow through a brand new target, like never been shot before.
I know. So one other thing that Hoyt is doing this year is they're making all their own strings in-house. And so the quality is top notch, and it just really is something that is setting them apart from their competitors.
Well, what we always try to do when we go to our bow shop, Ultimate Outdoors, is we try to shoot other bows just to make sure that we are really giving everybody a fair chance.
Sure.
The reality is it's a no-brainer. Hoyt stands above all of them every single time.
Definitely. And so right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 20% off any apparel on the Hoyt website. And as always,
get serious, get Hoyt.
It's so different from what all of us do, like on a daily basis. Aside from like if you're working out and like, yeah, physically you can get to that frame of mind, but I think about it a lot. I'm sure you do too. Like when you're halfway up a mountain or walking into your spot, you're like, this is different than what I'm usually, for most people, right? Maybe if you're working in the woods and stuff, but it's a big thing. It's not nothing to go. When we were, the past 2 days, we've been trimming out trees and hanging stands in Iowa and stuff. And I'm like, I think to myself, I'm like, who's doing this? Like, this is a ton of work. I was like, we're way back in here.
Yeah.
We're, climbing some crazy trees. I'm like, it's no wonder people don't, their ladder stand is like on the road over there.
Yeah. People have talked to me and they say, you want to get strong, freaking climb trees all summer prepping.
Yeah.
Holding on with one arm, packing shit. I mean, I've done that my whole life, lived in the mountains my whole life. I've had a couple guys come out and hunt with me. One guy was a triathlon athlete, and he come out and elk hunted with me, and I was 15 years older than him. He was a triathlon athlete, built for it, killed it. Could not hike the mountains with me, and it's only because that's all I've ever lived in.
Yeah, it's just what you're used to.
That's just all I've ever lived in, and anybody would do that lived in it, that had a passion to go do it.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're pounding your chest or trying to be cool. Yeah. It's just like I noticed. I was like, damn, Ryan.
Just what you do.
I was like, Ryan, this, he just looked at me and go, Trey, how do you not get tired? How are your legs not burned? Like his legs were burning bad. He goes, my legs are burning, but my wind's got, and I'm like, it's because my entire life I've logged. You know, I grew up, my dad was a logger, so I've always logged.
Yep.
And always just been in the woods and doing, it's, you know, you guys would call it farm boy conditioning.
Yep.
I've just always been in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Firewood, logging, hiking, hanging sets, elk hunting, scouting year round.
Yep.
So I guess my point is it's given me unbelievable appreciation to be able to run this kind of gear. And then when I get to like go hunt with Justin, it's freaking so awesome. It is just like it's like a reprieve and a breath of fresh air. Plus I'm hunting a higher class caliber deer overall. And it's honestly like an awesome vacation to me.
Well, so talk about that, because obviously I'm not hunting the same stuff, but I lean on Jared for this. Is like a lot of my stuff I'm hunting is big woods, whether that's Southeast Ohio or Eastern Kentucky or even Pennsylvania. It's big woods, right? When you put me in like farm country like this, I'm overanalyzing everything because I'm working, like I'm thinking about pressing in a 3/4 of a mile just to even get close to bedding, right? And so like when we were on our Illinois farm, I'm like, and he's like, no, dude, they're just going to do this because this is how deer are going to do. And it's like, I am overanalyzing so much because of how I have to be in the big wood setting that I'm probably making it way more difficult in most of the ag country that I hunt.
Yeah, because we do push so hard in the big woods to get to where we have to be to try to do it.
Yeah.
It's a needle in a haystack.
Just even to be in the game.
Right. And what I do is I lean these guys. I probably haven't said it enough, but I listen to every word Justin or Mike or Steve says. I really pay attention because that's who I hang out with when I get to come and hunt with these guys. And I listen to everything they say, and then I take that. I'm not that guy that's going to like think, well, just because I can do it out there, that I'm going to be perfect here. And the biggest thing I have to do, big woods versus hunting with like flat ground, farm ground, is I have to just freaking slow down a little bit, back off a little bit, and go, whoa,
easy, Troy,
rein it in, and just go, you know what?
Yeah,
I don't need to push that far in on these deer because they don't have that much room for me to
sitting Indian style in their bed waiting.
Yeah, exactly. And I've enjoyed hunting out here. I have not killed a buck in Ohio yet. Now I've been picky and I could have killed a buck, but I loved what I have learned my 2 trips out here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm after a tank.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to hunt.
Yeah.
And if I go home with a tag in my pocket, I do not care because when I hunt 8 straight days for a specific buck out in Ohio, like I did last year, to try to just get him in bow range, the buck I had available to me that I wanted to kill, that tripped my trigger, I learned so much about how to hunt that when I come back again. Like it just taught me so much. If I would have went out and killed one on day one, and if one of these guys would have just set me on one, I'm not learning half of what I learned.
Right.
Yeah.
And to me, the learning and the education is how you grow. As soon as you start, I really enjoy the learning. And I've been all over. Guys, I've hunted Alberta, successful. I've hunted in Iowa, successful. So it's not like I fail in other states, but Ohio's been good for me because it's like,
Well, it's a different hunt for you, too, because, when you're talking, and I hunt differently in different parts of Ohio. I don't hunt the same all over.
Like where you're living versus like down by us and south, completely different.
I don't hunt that same way. There's a different style for sure. And I think the one misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to the flatter farm ground and stuff like that, I think a lot of people think that those bucks use the wind a lot more than they do. They use their eyesight a lot more than they do.
It's wide open.
They purposely position themselves in places that they can watch.
Yes.
And when you got to get past some of that, and you got to say, okay, like I gotta access this a little differently because I know that this particular. I can show you a trail cam picture of a buck from yesterday that I purposely set up a camera back home, and he is bedded watching an open field.
Yep.
Do you think you have to give up your wind a little bit to do some of those creative accesses?
You do, 100%. You have to give up your wind to get in there and be creative with that because they're setting up and, there's been so many times over the years where I'm like, man, I don't understand. Like, I played that perfect with the wind, this and that. Well, the problem all along, they saw me coming.
Yeah.
And it was a done deal where, like, in your situation out there, you got so much more room to run. So, like, when you get into southern Ohio, well, then it becomes, more of a terrain feature.
Absolutely.
And you're thinking, and now I got to play the thermals a little bit different, because even on the stuff that I hunt, in Illinois, there's a lot of big, deep ravines and stuff like that. So, I got to take, I got a spot that it is a money spot. It has a huge community scrape in the bottom of it every single year. But I can tell you right now, if you go in there and you hunt that thing in the first thing in the morning, or if you hunt that in the evening, you're toasted.
That thermal's
never
kill you.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
You have to stand at the top of that hill.
And
you
wait.
have to wait for that lift to happen.
Yep.
Then you make your move and you bust your ass and you get down there and get in that stand. You got about a 2-hour window, and then you got to get out. That's it.
Yep.
Wow.
But it takes a lot of mistakes to kind of, to learn those
and
types of
observation,
maneuvers.
understanding what's happening.
Yeah.
I know guys that will go in there time and time and again. They're like, I can't figure. I don't understand. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And the discipline to go, okay, I'm gonna stand here.
Yeah.
I do. I've done that a lot where I won't go.
That's a tough thing.
I will
for people.
stand here until that wind does what I have to have it to do.
Well, I think they think they're messing up. I mean, it was ingrained in our brains. It's like you go in early, you get in early, you get set up, and you're in position long before they come in, not realizing that, your thermals are doing one thing. The moment the sun starts to come up, they're doing something completely different.
Yeah.
I think for most guys, it's probably a lack of confidence in their observation. Like, they see it happen, maybe they don't fully understand it, and so they don't commit to the decision to act on it. They're like, well, I've just always known you got to be in there before dark or whatever.
And I agree with that 100%, because the biggest problem with guys is they sometimes, even though they see it, they can't believe their eyes, and they still don't make the adjustment.
Yeah.
Like, your eyes don't lie. That's why, to me, using a spotting scope and binos and all those types of things, there's a lot of times I'm sitting back and waiting to watch something happen, and then I'm immediately reacting to that and trying to capitalize on that move and what that particular animal did at that moment. Yep. And so many people set back too long. You can't set back too long, and you gotta. And if you screw up, you screw up. Who cares? And so many people think too, like, going in there and bumping a deer and stuff like that, and like they're just going to leave the county and that's it. And I'm telling you, sometimes some of these bucks, you cannot hardly run out of a spot. I mean, I killed a buck a few years ago, and I mean, I was pounding that place to death, but I was seeing him all the time, and he cracked me on 2 different occasions, and I was just relentless in it. And then he made a mistake. Yep. And I watched him take his doe back to a bedding area right where I found his shed. I slid in there, and then I watched him stand up out of his bed 80 yards away, and I killed him that night. Yep. But you have to. Yeah. But there's been times, too, where I've screwed that up. Yeah.
You got to be there, and you got to see it. Observation is what kills deer, in my opinion. Like, it's harder to do in some country, but in farm country, a lot of times you have the luxury of, if you're there, whether you're in a stand or you're running the roads, I'll elect a lot of times to, like, I'll either burn hunts with just going to a spot where I can see a lot and I know I'm not even in the game, or I'm just gonna drive, and chances are I'll see one doing something. I'll take the risk on getting eyes on something that I can make a move on than to just go in and have a have a chance at something I don't know is there or not.
Yeah, I've been on hunts before where, say, I'm out of state or whatever, and I've spent 2 days not hunting. Just because I'm just glassing and and I might be scouting in the middle of the day and getting my, boots on the ground. So I fully understand it. But a few years ago in Illinois, I spent a couple days mostly just scouting. And then finally, I got the wind and where I wanted to be, and I went in and I killed a buck that morning.
It's so easy to waste a whole hunt. Like, if you're going out of state and you're like, I picked my spot, I have confidence in my spot, and I'm going to sit there for a week. And it might be getting down to, maybe you picked the wrong spot. You get to like day 4 or 5 and you're like, I haven't learned anything. I've just been sitting in this tree. I've only seen this draw. I have no idea like what's happening around me. Yeah. It's a big mistake.
It is.
That I've made numerous times.
And I just, and I think so we all grew up playing in the woods, right? This is where our interests all came from. So, because we like to discover things and run around in the woods and try to figure out things when you're kids and you're playing and doing all this. And when I was growing up, and I grew up about 45, 50 minutes south of Cleveland is where I grew up in Ashland County.
Yep.
And we didn't have a lot of deer. So like seeing tracks and all that kind of stuff, that was cool. Like I was like, I felt like I was really onto something, you know? And so that's the intriguing part to me still to this day is the sign aspect of it, of trying to put all the pieces and stuff like that. And I know that, you know, trail cameras have taught us a ton, but you know, in some ways too, they've also made us take step backwards.
Yeah.
And made us chase pictures at times, which is,
a lot
is I can fall into that trap every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think, you know, that part of it, like just trying to paint a picture and figure out what a deer's going to do before the deer does it. That is the most intriguing part of the whole thing to me. And because when you do it and you figure it out and you put it on one, man, that is the best feeling.
It's a big confidence boost. To kind of tie in what you're saying earlier about like hunting with these guys in Illinois or in Ohio or whatever, even though Jeremy and Isaac probably roots or our experience is not that different. Jeremy is more comfortable like in a big timber ridge environment, which I'm like, I can see it for what it is, and I know that it's not my strong suit. But I'm like he said, I'm much more comfortable in farm country. And so when he and I go to places in the Midwest that have, in a lot of cases, a combination of the two, we've just like we do in the podcast. Like we bicker and disagree on stuff. Like, you know, as we're talking here, it's the same thing. And we'll sit and look at 4 different trees, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, do you trust me on this one? He's like, I do, but. You know, right there, and I'm like, I see your point.
Well, yep. I mean, this week it was an average of 1 hour per spot.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Trying to break it down.
We would get there, and it would take an hour to pick the tree, trim the tree, figure out where the camera should go, create a mock scrape. Like it was at least an hour process per, and I would say half of that is just.
Yeah.
Us like, okay, wind this way. Well, we want to shoot that, but like our axis is here, so we're not even going to be here for that wind. Like.
On every single one, too, we leave with a fist bump, and we're going to get a booner on that one. On every single one. We're like, yeah. that's the one.
We feel good. Yeah, and it's funny when you do that because it is Iowa especially. I think Kansas, we have a little bit of that. Illinois is more ag, but Iowa for sure was like, it felt like the melting pot for that kind of big woods and terrain as well as ag country. So
it is.
When we're standing there together, like it is completely a feed dynamic, and eventually it's like, yeah, that's how we're going to do it.
It's a really cool melt because we'd be like, are you getting a little North Dakota here? And then he'd be like, are you getting a little Kansas in this part? I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling, you know, and they all kind of like come together, that part of Iowa that we're in. It just felt like a really cool combination of all of it.
I remember years ago, so the guys that, Jared Erdati and Lee Gatsky, Lee had some farms in Buffalo County.
Oh, yeah.
And I went up there for the first time and hunted, and I was pretty overwhelmed because I wasn't used to hunting that kind of, you know, steep.
Like bluffs.
That kind of stuff. And I remember like being a little bit like out of my element, and I'm like, ooh, boy, I got to get this figured out real quick. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to try to, 4 or 5 days before I'm like, okay, I think I got more of a feel for this now. Mm-hmm. But and I think it's much harder. It would be much harder for me to come and hunt at your place than you to ever come and hunt at my place. Mm-hmm. It'd be much easier.
Well, that was Mike and I yesterday. Mike's an Ohio boy. Mm-hmm. Hunt same stuff Justin does. Mike has done some Southern Ohio stuff. He had a place down there.
Yep.
But to touch on what you guys do, that was Mike and I yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I said, all right, here's what I want to do, Mike. I said, let me give you my perspective and how I see it. You give me your perspective on how you see it, and then let's come up with a best practice of what we think would work the best for all these scenarios that we play out. And we were doing the same. We did like 6 setups. And everything for us started with access first. Because if you don't have the access, you're wasting your effing time.
Exactly.
So we started with access, and we would nail that down. And then it was positioning, the tree, the setup, the scrape, everything we wanted, reading all the sign right now, reading all the sign from last rut. We were really trying to tune in on everything. And, grass is that tall.
Sure.
So we're still really trying to key on where a trail was 6 months ago. All that stuff. And we ended up agreeing on everything, but it took at least a half an hour to 45 minutes. But what I'm getting at there is that's great stuff.
Oh,
because you got 2 heads, putting two heads together, really laying out all the different potential scenarios.
Looking at it from
two different backgrounds.
Exactly.
And Mike's got a little hill country in him, though, as Justin knows, because he used to hunt. He had a place in Southern Ohio. Said that earlier. It was a lot of fun just doing that with Mike. Mike's 15 years younger than me, and it was just fun because I was able to share some stuff with him that I think made a lot of sense. And he was too. And Iowa is that setup. It is that farm ground, but it's also the contour, the elevation gains, the big timber, the cedar flats. It was super cool.
Yeah.
Like we had a freaking blast for about 6 hours. And that's the shit we live for, guys.
Oh, man.
Because I'm going to end up doubling back someday and hunting that same piece. So I got my scouting in.
Absolutely.
My initial scout in for maybe even a couple years down the road.
Yeah.
So it was a good time.
To me, there's nothing more exciting than trying to figure out a new piece.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean,
it's invigorating.
I mean, out of say
awesome.
30 good bucks or whatever that I've killed over the years, like probably 19 or 20 of them have been on different pieces. And that's been the fun part, about just trying to figure out, because it's real easy to get like locked into one piece and then you get it figured out. And then there's going to be historically good spots every year.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yep. So then you and I can tend to get bored a little bit with that.
It's good to have that though. And keep it there.
It is.
And then build off of it.
Yeah, for sure. But man, I love when, because I've kind of always prided myself on being able to get access, to, permission pieces and stuff like that. And, man, I love that first walk,
Oh, yeah.
When you're going through there, especially if it's like in March or April or something like that, and you get in there and poke around, you're like, ooh, this is going to be fun.
New page.
Well, dude, as crazy as it is, like my Southern Ohio farm, and it was a weird weather stretch. It was like a warm stretch, but I walked it to buy it on November 7th. So I was walking it in real time sign. And so I'm walking through and I'm like, this is all tore up.
That's the worst time to walk a farm, by the way.
I was gonna say,
if you're trying to be a cold-blooded buyer, we'll take it.
And so, I'm like walking around and I'm like, my head's just exploding on it. But like I'm seeing everything in real time on this thing. And like I've gone back and watched, because I videoed like so much that day walking around. And I've gone back and watched it, and I was like, number one, I'm like, I can't believe I walked a farm on November 7th and I wasn't in a tree stand. But number two, I was like, man, I saw the potential all right there in front of me. So even like some of these Iowa spots, I'd say three of them we walked last March or April when we were shed hunting.
3 of the farms.
Yeah, March, I think it was.
Yep.
And so like we had some historical stuff because we saw kind of that bare bones woods in March. And
really walked them.
Yeah. And so when we came back, it's like, okay, we already have 3 or 4 X marks of spots. Like, let's narrow these down now per what we know from there and how crop rotations change and stuff like that.
If I was you guys, I would just try to get on every border of Skip Sly's place as much as I can.
We were trying to get on Skip Sly's place. That was the first gig.
I've known Skip forever.
Yeah. No, I think he pointed us in the right direction. He definitely had some input on where we're at, but I have loved. And you guys have some years on me, so I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But like, I feel blessed to have hunted some different places, like from North Dakota to Kansas to Ohio to Illinois to Pennsylvania. It's like you learn something at every one of them, whether it's from successes or failures, and it's really fun. Specifically, like most recently, I killed a good one in North Dakota last year from a land bridge crossing and the tracks. And before that, I'd never killed a deer because of a track, nor did I really pay too much attention to crossings. So like if I were to point to something, I'm like, that's one thing that I took last year and can really see like is a direct application to some of it's just a piece of it, and so it's fun. And we're at a pretty big advantage, in that from a hunting and from a land management standpoint, in that we get to talk to a lot of guys.
Yeah, that's cool.
All year long. And so we're just absorbing. We're like, oh, well, that's how that guy does this. And, well, Andre said this that one time. But do you remember how, and we compare, like, even the managers from, like, like your Higgins and your Sturgises and your LaPratts. And it's like you listen to all, and they all have a little difference, but we have, like, I think the lens to be able to filter it through. And then Jeremy and I talk about it, we're like, okay, so here's how we're going to take that and apply that to this piece. So our learning curve, and we're grateful for this, has been like like straight there to where it's like, dude, we got it. We took everything from everybody on top of our own experience, because it's not like we're just podcasts. Like we've grown up doing this too. And
and you guys are in an age group like my sons that are in their 20s. You guys benefit hugely from social media. I mean, you guys are podcasters. You shit me. You talk to some unbelievable hunters. You guys work in land. You sell land. You talk to landowners.
Talk to a ton of them.
Nowadays, anybody that wants to learn, it's there.
Oh, the media platform is insane.
Yeah. And you reach out to, there's so many good guys out there. Us old guys all love to help. We'll help any guy that's just reach out and be respectful. And, look at Andre. He's still, like Justin said, Andre.
I love other hunters. I love being around other hunters and talking to them. And I love the hunting community. Yeah. I truly do. And sure, there's some bad seeds, but there's bad seeds in every occupation out there and everything that you do. But, I mean, I've always felt like really blessed, like what you guys are doing right now with the podcast and everything. All the people that you guys are meeting, and all the different information that you guys are soaking in. I'm telling you, like, you wait. You guys
already have. But you're just gonna grow.
You guys are whitetail addicts, just like us.
And I, one thing that I like to, if I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but just one thing I know about myself is that I'm skeptical. Like, I'm careful about who I learn from. Yeah. Because there's lots of guys who want to tell you how to do it. But then you have to ask, you're like, well, do I want to be like that guy? Or, even if he's killing, whatever it is. So
you got to decide if it's going to work for you and your application and your scenario.
Processing what you said about, like, the online content and stuff. It's interesting because you're right. And I've even said that.
What I was trying to get at, Jared, was I grew up in an age where I purposely.
There is no information.
There was no info.
Yeah.
So what I did, and I liked what you said earlier, and I purposely put myself in other states and other countries when I was young. When I was about 30, I said, I am never going to become a better whitetail hunter back in these mountains. Now, most people, I don't know if they'd agree with this logic, but I thought, you need to go hunt every frickin' different habitat that you can while you're in the prime of your life. And you guys are at that age. So you saying, I've purposely put myself in different states. What I'm getting at, I'm a 31-year, going on 32 years as an educator. I talk to people all the time about making themselves better, no matter whatever their love or their passion is. Coached for 30 years. The best thing I ever did as a whitetail hunter was, it's twofold. You build relationships with incredible people that have a body of work that is you can't argue with, and they're great character people, but you also go put yourself, as much as you can afford to, as much as you can make work within the means of your family, you go out and put yourself in all those different habitats and environments, and you let those damn deer teach you how they, like Justin's saying, those Ohio deer are going to use their eyes. The North Dakota deer I hunted use their eyes. The mountain deer that I hunt, or the big woods deer that can't see past 60, 70 yards, are going to use their nose. And all that. And the deer that are hunted by predators are going to act different than a deer that doesn't get hunted by wolves or lions. So just where you guys are at and where the world's at right now with whitetails, your guys' generations, if you're willing to do the work, it's all out there.
That's right at your fingertips.
it's just do the freaking work.
That's what it comes down
to. And I think where some of us guys might benefit that are a little older, like an Andre or Steve or Justin, or even down to Justin's age and my age, is we had to freaking figure it out.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Man, Jared, we are tree stand fanatics, and I think the one thing that we have learned over all these years is to kill big bucks, we got to be mobile. We've been hunting out of Lone Wolves for many years, the original Lone Wolf, and then obviously with the custom gear stuff, we're using the 0.5 and the 0.75. Yeah. And the one thing that we talked about is like, what if there were no cables? Here we are.
I really just don't know how you can beat it, frankly. But, a lot of that came, too, from a relationship that we've built with the Quistos. We've had both Cody and Andre on the podcast a few times. The passion for hunting, the outlook on the sport and stuff, I think is eye to eye with how we look at it. Everything that has gone into building this brand and to building these tree stands is something that we want to be a part of.
This is the 40th anniversary of these guys creating tree stands that have been critical to how we hunt whitetail deer today. If you look over the past, you'll see Andre's designs being implemented across so many stands over the years. Such a cool thing, but really has changed the way that we all hunt whitetail deer from above now.
Right now, you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, to get 7% off anything on the entire website. Be the Lone Wolf.
Why are you putting yourself so old?
Well,
how old are you, Troy?
I'll be 55 in October.
Okay. Well, you're not even as old as my dad.
Yeah, you're young, dude.
I don't feel old.
No.
And I hope I don't come across. I mean,
you're hiking Idaho mountains. Dude, I don't think you're old.
No, I've always with age is biological versus chronological.
Yeah.
Like, I know dudes that are 45 and in terrible shape can't do shit.
Yep. Agree.
But then there's also people we got guys on our team that you guys have shook their hand that are in their 60s that are animals. Mm-hmm. So it's a mindset. It's how you take care of yourself. And, that's what Justin and I want to do. We want to be able to do this I want to be able to do it till they put me in a casket.
Well, I mean, dude, people can say what they want about Eberhard. Dude's 77 years old and climbing trees like a squirrel. If I can do that at his age, hell yes, man.
That guy's in phenomenal shape.
He's a freaking beast.
I heard Andre mumbling the other day on his laptop. He's like, one of my buddies, he's like 55, rotator cuff, thinking he's freaking pussy. He's going to a crossbow.
He was, dude.
He's like, you won't catch me doing that.
He was mad.
I've got a 20% disability I've never told anybody about. I broke my back in 4 places. I'm fused. I'm plated. I was offered, here's your crossbow slip. Here's this. I told the doctor no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I said no. I am not going to shoot. I'm going to shoot a bow and arrow till I physically can't pull one back.
Exactly.
And I'll shoot 50 pounds if I have to when I'm older.
Yeah, right.
Well, just a few years.
Because if I'd have took that route back when it would have been easy for me.
Yeah.
If I'd have took that route back in that day because I got screwed up and I hurt my back so bad, and I'm great. I mean, people wouldn't even know it. If I would have took that route, that mindset is a failure mindset, in my opinion. I was like, no, that's not, he wanted, here's all your pain medicine too. I said, throw that shit in the garbage. Mm-hmm. I said, I ain't taking that route.
Yeah.
Because if you do in life and you start taking the easy way out, you never figure out what it means to really work and then get the reward from it.
Well, dude, we talk about it all the time. People don't
see Troy Pottenger shooting a crossbow?
No.
It's just not who he is.
I will
make a decision.
No, I'll shoot a longbow that's 50 pounds if I have to.
Yeah.
And be happy with it.
People don't want to be uncomfortable. It's a hard mindset because, I feel like my entire life, I've just always figured out a way to be uncomfortable. That's how you learn. That's how you get better, whether it was in sports or business or relationships or whatever it is.
Everything.
But it's eerie out there when you start to realize how many people just want to be comfortable in their own space.
And I'm telling you, the comfortable people, I've taught probably 25,000 students in my lifetime. If you do the math, 30 plus years, 700 kids a year. I have an impact on all of them. Coached for 30 plus years. Was a high school football coach, track, done it all, ex-college athlete, blah, blah, blah. The greatest thing I tell kids I can give them ever in life is you have to create a mindset that conquers. Mm-hmm. And you got to love obstacles and difficulty and being uncomfortable, because then you'll thrive. I said, if you just want to be comfortable all the time, you're going to go into a little shell. And you're never ever, your fear is gonna drive your life. Mm-hmm. Fears are gonna dictate your decisions, and you just got like you guys diving into all of this. There's 2 types of people in the world. There's people that cower to stuff, or there's people that freaking go after it. And you're gonna fail some along the way.
Oh yeah.
And then it plays right into how we hunt deer.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
your approach to like hunting different states, because it makes you uncomfortable, is probably more admirable than ours. Ours is just, they're not where we're at, so we're just chasing big deer.
But you end up running into
the challenge comes with it.
The challenge,
and we're up for it.
And it's cool because you know it's like, okay, I just got my ass kicked again. How does your mindset handle losing? Because really, you lose a lot of days every year.
Yeah.
You're losing the game that day.
Yep.
But as long as you end up in the end capitalizing, winning that one day a year or two, maybe it's $2 a year or whatever, it's all worth it.
Yeah, it's all worth it.
And who cares if you get beat up along the way? You're learning.
Yeah. Every day that you're not doing something whitetail related, you're one step back from killing your next buck. I mean, I've always looked at, I have to do at least one thing whitetail related a day, whether that's just shoot my bow, or knock on a couple doors, or maybe I'm working on some habitat stuff, or maybe whatever it might be.
Maybe you're getting on your spreadsheet and looking at a buck a little closer.
Maybe I'm just doing historical data with certain
anything.
deer and stuff like that. But you like have to be all the time. You have to do at least one thing a day.
The level of effort is, I think, inconceivable for most people. Like, from a habitat standpoint, like what Jeremy and I did this year, like multiple trips to the Midwest, and we embrace it. Like, yeah, it sucks to drive 13 hours to go drill switchgrass.
People ask us all the time. They're like, I don't understand how you're doing it. It's like, dude, I'm driving like right after work. I'm driving till super ass late at night. I get there. I get up early. I binge it all day, and I drive my ass home. And that's it.
Well, you do it. You either do it or you don't.
Yeah, if I don't do it, it will not happen.
Right. Yeah, and it's just it's not like, oh, I have this chore list. It's just, this is who I am and this is what I do. I can't not go. That switchgrass is not going to plan itself. And if it doesn't happen, my odds are less, and I can't let that happen. So I'm going.
Yeah.
People ask me, they go, why'd you drive 26 hours and not fly? I say, because I wanted to see Montana. I wanted to put eyes on Wyoming. I wanted to put eyes on South Dakota. I'm running my base map the whole time. I'm looking at all the public that butts up against unbelievable destination food sources like in South Dakota. Just shit like that.
Oh, yeah.
Or I could have got on a plane. I could have got here quicker.
Yeah.
I could have had the easy route, and it still would have took a day.
Sure.
And then I would have rented a car. And I'm like, no, I'm a whitetail guy. I'm going to look at every piece of habitat I can. Now, listen, this is what's cool, is there was a fire from Gillette, Wyoming to Buffalo. I-90 got shut down. So I had to go this alternative route.
To Buffalo, South Dakota?
In Wyoming.
Oh, Wyoming.
So there was Buffalo, Wyoming to Gillette was shut down on I-90 because of a forest fire.
Wow.
This is just 2 days ago, coming over here. 2 days ago. That's 3, I guess. Anyway, I end up on this 2-track highway, and my whole purpose was to look at stuff and look at great habitat. For 110 miles, guess what I looked at? That I would have never known. I would have never known.
Yeah.
Tons of public. Alfalfa Basin for 100 miles.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'd have never, ever experienced,
that'll do.
And it was a twist of fate that put me on that road. And my wife's like, how you doing? I go, good. I'm about an hour behind because I got detoured. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, honey. And I go, no, it's good.
It's good.
It's good.
Yeah. Check out this alfalfa.
and who knows if I ever go back.
Doesn't matter.
But it's in my mind now.
I know.
Because I really, truly, to circle all the way back, what Justin was saying, what you guys were saying about different habitats, different experiences. One, we love a new experience. Two, I want to know how whitetails function in every possible habitat out there. Like I'm hunting Canada this year.
Yeah.
But I'm not hunting ag. Huge bush country.
Yeah, which is wild.
It's ridiculous. If I say the numbers, people have to Google it to fact check me. 5.3 million acres. There's 100 million acres of public up there. And I'm going to be on a 5.3 million acre, which is so big that you could never hunt it and scout it all in your lifetime. But the intrigue to me is going into huge covered country that I'm getting away from the ag and where everybody hunts to see what lives and how they roll back in that big woods country. And it's pretty flat, but it's grizzlies, it's wolves, it's lions, and then bucks that die of old age. In Alberta. Just, that I get excited about it. It's something new.
Yeah.
Last time I went to Alberta, it was at Bow Zone. It was ag / it was that, it was like flat ground
right
ag. And it was awesome.
Edmonton
right outside of Edmonton. And now I get to go do this whole completely different environment that I've never hunted in, man.
Yeah, almost similar to your Idaho minus the terrain.
Minus terrain.
Right?
Yeah. But it's going to be I think the bucks are really going to live by their nose.
Yeah.
Because the predators plus the cover and the thickness and the canopy. The guy that I'm hunting with, the guy sent me a picture. He goes, well, there's your canopy, and it's like 100 miles of timber. It's 100. It's just as far as you can see forever of just
and pretty flat.
Real flat, which is a whole new.
So is the hardwoods because you got that canopy? So is everything underneath just wide open because no vegetation can grow?
Well, it's conifer trees and hardwoods.
Okay.
So when you combine those two different types of trees, you actually have quite a bit of You have quite a bit of cover. You have some leaves that are going to be gone, and then down on the ground, Justin, it's just straight grass and brush.
Yep.
For miles.
You probably have some edges though, using the conifers and the hardwood edges, and
there's swamps in there. Yep.
See, that's the one, and I mean, maybe it's the untapped space that we haven't got into. Like, we hunted southern Illinois, which was very like southern swampy, and I think both of us felt really out of our element. Like block of timber.
Hated it.
That was very wet and flat, and then flat ag around it, and it was just like
it was like Shawnee. It was all the way down.
We didn't know what to do.
County type
yeah,
stuff.
we're like hiking back in, and all of a sudden I hit a swamp edge with cypress trees, and I'm like, the fuck? Like, where am I going? Like, where are these deer coming from?
It's like cane grass sloughs in North Dakota.
Exactly.
Where the deer live out on an island in a slough, where you hear them coming in the water, and then you have no trees, so you hunt them off the ground. I did this for, shout out to my old buddy Tim Freund. He died this last year. He's a phenomenal whitetail hunter. Nobody will ever know who he was, but he was phenomenal. And I hunted with him for almost 2 decades.
Wow.
And I'm glad I get to say his name. I didn't even think of that, but it came up. He just died recently. And Tim taught me so much going out with him. And that was back in my days of learning. Like I said, I got to go to these new habitats. Tim taught me everything he did is off the ground. Everything he did was tucked in the cane grass. And he killed some unbelievable bucks for North Dakota off the ground. He's killing them all at 10 to 15, 20 yards. But what he taught me was how the whitetails taught me, but Tim did too while I was there, is how they use their eyes. Mm-hmm. Because it's in that North Dakota country. Yeah. If a freaking deer saw you a half a mile away, the whole damn herd just ran for a mile.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned all about, you got to go in the dark, you leave in the dark, or you're walking a tree belt, or you're not getting in. It's either dark to dark, or you're not getting in.
Wow.
Or, very little contour, which, just another experience. You're sitting there on the ground the whole time. I hunted one day, it was minus 29 degrees below zero.
Ooh.
And Tim's like, we can get 2 or 3 hours in. We're not setting in a blind. You're not dragging a blind out there and setting it up. And we weren't, Tim's was hardcore, but you're backing into the foot of snow. You're building yourself a little spot to sit so you don't make noise. You're knocking all the cane grass down. You build this little tiny teardrop in the cane grass, and then you wait for those deer to come to feed, exit, and I was hunting late season, so it wasn't a rut hunt. But just what I learned from Tim over those few hunts out there was incredible when it came to their other senses that they rely on over their nose.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that I was able to take and apply to wide open ground.
Well, yeah, because we think the nose, and we went into it with Andre and Cody about no matter what you do, unless it's playing the wind and thermals, you will not beat their nose. It ain't happening. Right. And so, but then you look at whether it's a Dakota or in that open ground in Ohio, and it's like, if you don't, those deer are using their eyes. Sure, they're still using their nose, but they're using their eyes more, and it's like, all of those things. And I think it's really hard for people to process that kind of stuff, right? Like to literally multi-process those things.
And decipher it right now and make it work for you within when us guys all go out of state, any of us, you got 4 or 5 days to get it to work for you.
You got to go.
Yeah. And then if you're picky as hell, like a lot of us guys are, then it's like you cut your odds way down. But again, I'll use, that trip to Ohio last year, Tyson was tickled with the deer he killed, but he's 21 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still stacking.
He's like, Dad, you could go kill that 4x5 every day. I know, but I'll learn way more trying to kill this other deer.
Yeah.
And
isn't it funny though, when you go on an out of state hunt and you're limited on time, my aggressiveness is way different than the way I hunt sometimes at home. And sometimes
it's not the same thing at all.
Yeah, sometimes at home I really hold myself back, even to this day, of not doing the things that I would do out of state on like say a long weekend hunt or something like that, where on a long weekend hunt, like I am
You're diving in.
I'm gonna observe some, but I'm going for broke.
Yep.
On those sits.
Yep.
And I've had that happen before, where like I'm back home, and now like say I had a trip and I was gonna go to Illinois or Iowa, Kansas, wherever, and I'm running out of time and I'm hunting a particular deer, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I got to get this done, and I go in and I just kill the deer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why did I not do any of this stuff?
Just went with your gut.
Prior to this, I just pussyfooted around the whole time and danced around it instead of just getting really aggressive, and I would have killed the deer much sooner.
Well, we got to make those hard decisions. It's like you got to make them.
Yeah.
And I think we all learn a lot through the years and experiences of failures when we didn't make them. It's like, that ain't freaking happening again.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And I feel like for me personally, I don't hunt the days I used to. Like my volume hunting isn't.
Volume hunting?
I don't volume hunt.
Yeah, same.
It's like Justin and I talk about a lot.
I did last year.
It's yeah, but you also killed 3 deer.
Yeah.
You know, you had a great year. You killed 3 deer. Like for me, a lot of times for me, it's you get him killed in 2 or 3 days, and bam, it's surgical, and you're out and you're done. But I might have waited and scouted like crazy and worked on other bucks just in case when he wasn't ready and he wasn't killable yet to pounce on. And again, I'm hunting specific deer, which not everybody's doing that, and that's fine. But what I'm getting at is I probably spend 100 days of scouting in a whole calendar year to every 2 or 3 days that I hunt.
Yeah.
Because I think I scout at least partial days, a minimum of 150 a year. At least 2 hours somewhere, glassing or checking a camera. I call that a scouting day.
Reading a map,
it's not a whole day.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is, and then you go out and that's not the way it used to be for me. I feel like I've became way more like disciplined and strategic about when you got to go pounce. And it's really paying off because I don't feel like I'm making as many mistakes. But boy, when it's time to go, I'm aggressive as hell. And then when I go out of state to like Justin's, I'm 100% more aggressive because I know I only got 7 or 8 days. Like I'm pushing it.
I like pushing it. I don't think your mindset is the wrong one though. Like you're talking about farms that either you manage or you will have access to from year to year.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean we do the exact same thing. Like it's not that I'm pussyfooting around those farms, but first of all, I know them better. So it's like I know the spots that I will eventually kill those deer. And so there's not really a rush. You know, it's like I would rather not affect the deer herd or the longevity of from season to season by penetrating some of these bedding areas. When push comes to shove, it's like we will. And don't get me wrong, we're hunting bedding areas like on our home farms. But why go in and kill them aggressively when you can sit back and kill them at a safe spot?
Yeah.
Well, let me
in
ask
the back of your mind too. There's a part of you that wants that deer to get away. I mean, maybe not. There's a tipping point in the season where you're like, he's made it this long.
Well, yeah, because I mean, we've all had that. I mean, I've went out and have killed my target buck probably 6-8 different times over the years on the first week of season. And there has been those years when I've done that, and then I'm like, oh.
You gotta have other states lined up.
I'm like, I have other states lined up, but then it's almost a little kind of like, oh man, like because I do like to hunt.
And I'm like you, Justin. I've got 5 in the August 30th to September.
Yeah.
First. So in a 3-day period, I've got 5 in my lifetime where it was just over.
Yeah.
But I will say this: if that sucker's killable,
kill him.
And if you're not killing him, then what the hell are you doing?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, so that's that fine line. Versus sometimes though you're like trying to convince yourself he's killable.
Yeah. I mean,
and maybe he's not as killable as you convince him.
I think
what I'm saying is don't go in and
so I get where
muck things up in the future. Yeah, hunt smart. But like when we're in Iowa, like there's no like, oh, I really want to get this deer to the next year. It's like, hey, we waited 6 years to be here. And I'm not going to make stupid decisions or shoot deer that I don't want to shoot, but we are going to be aggressive.
I mean, I think
BE aggressive.
Yeah, BE aggressive. I think it comes back to your style, right? Like we were talking about kind of our big wood style. Like when I've come out to the Midwest, Illinois, Kansas, really those 2 states, I mean, if I killed a deer in those states, which I think I did 5 of the last 6 years, every one of those was on the first sit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I totally believe that.
And we did that in Illinois this past year too. But and honestly, that's kind of a blend of the two, where it's a home farm that we own and that we're managing, but it's also not one that we get to a whole lot. So we hunted super aggressive last year and killed 3 bucks. And this year, I would say we probably won't hunt at least one of the spots that I killed from last year, just because it's too aggressive. I can kill them from somewhere else and not push deer off the farm. It's like we want the deer to have those. It's totally different from like
I get it.
A big woods experience.
Well, on that first sit thing too, I'm a big woods guy, so my frequency, if you do the math, my frequency is less.
Yep.
Because my deer are more spread out.
Yep.
So my frequency, like guys will say, what makes you think a deer is killable, Troy? I say, if that sumbitch is there 2 or 3 days a week daylight, which isn't a lot to a lot of guys, I'm on him.
Yeah.
That's
now,
Troy's
like, if he's there and he's alive, he's killable.
So what you guys, what that has forced me to do over the last 3 decades where I've really worked hard at it, I'd say 3 decades, because 4 decades ago I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was learning like crazy. Really started to pick it up in my early 30s. What that forced me to do, guys, is make my shit so bulletproof, because I knew the frequency was different than in a more congregated deer area, like say here in the Midwest, where you have deer a little closer. They're not moving 5, 6, 7 miles every day, or at least 2 or 3 miles every day. They're just not doing that. So what that forced me to do is the best I can perfect the bulletproofing of my setups or where I'm going to hang and hunt, so that I can hunt it more than one day. So a lot of times I have a lot of days, second or third day. And it's only because if you do the math, I got to put a couple days in sometimes, because his rotation of where he shows up is maybe only 2 or 3 days a week max.
Yeah.
So I do have to, but to me, that's still kind of like a first sit to me, because my stuff's bulletproof enough, meaning really dialed for entrance, exit, wind.
Yep.
I'm giving him everything he wants. I'm not screwing him up.
Yeah.
But he's also not picking me up 300 yards away when he didn't come down to that scrape.
Well,
so it really is like a first sit to me.
Yeah.
Like 3 days to me in the big woods is like a first sit for what I feel like when I'm in the Midwest.
Well, that's also, you have to know the specific, that specific animal that you're hunting. You have to know the personality of that animal. You have to figure that part of it out, because all of them are they just tick a little bit different.
They do. Their demeanors are all different.
Yeah.
And we do this. You and I watch a lot of bucks grow up, and we let them grow up.
Yep.
But we also analyze them for multiple years. So then we pick up on their demeanor. We pick up on their little nuances that just makes a huge difference when we want to kill them when they're mature. Would you agree with that, Justin?
100%. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference between like mature deer and I guess kind of what I'm framing up here is like guys want to say just kill the best deer that are in the I don't disagree with that recommendation. Like Pennsylvania, where we're from, in a lot of cases it's like a 3-year-old deer might be the oldest deer that's there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, kill them. But we are after those experiences where mature bucks have actually developed their own personalities and are doing things that mature bucks do.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. As much as for the guys that only hunt those states, I'd like for it to be. It's just not. All 2 and 3-year-olds do the same thing, in my experience.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've always experienced in all the places that I've ever hunted. Is most of the 2 and 3-year-olds kind of just do the same kind of things, and once they get 4, 5, 6, 7,
they start changing.
That's when things you see things, and you pick up on tendencies and stuff like that, and I mean, a lot of the places that I hunt they're small places, and there's a lot of people hunting around me and everything else. So it is tough sometimes. I mean, you might have a 3 or 4-year-old buck that's, say, he's a 150-inch deer or whatever, and you would really like to see that deer go another year. You have to, in order to, if you ever want to step up your game and play the game with some older class deer and some just bigger caliber animals when it comes to even rack size, you got to take the chance, and you got to let some of those deer go. And it's hard sometimes because that the other, you might know some of the other guys around you. They're gonna kill
if you're
that
in
deer,
a populated area.
You got to go to where they are too. I mean, go. For us, that's what brought us to the Midwest and stuff. We have some good opportunities in Ohio, and that fluctuates. But like for instance, we're from Pennsylvania, and I haven't bought a tag, and we will go this year just for some camaraderie with some guys, and there are more opportunity. I mean, there's pockets, right? But we went to where they are. I wasn't willing to just be like, oh, I guess I can just shoot 3-year-olds, and that's going to be, it may be the biggest buck that's there. You
progress
go to where
over
they are.
the years, as you go along, and you just want to, you want to shoot an older class deer and, a bigger rack deer or whatever, and you just kind of climb the ladder or whatever. That was some of the best advice that Andre gave me years ago, because I think at the time when I first met him, I'd only shot a couple good bucks. And I remember I was going to hold out for like a 150, and he was like, You need to just climb the ladder. Just go shoot some deer. Have some fun.
Yeah.
And go shoot some good bucks and just climb the ladder over the years. So, and I took that advice and I ran with it. And I was just like trying to hunt as many states as I could, just stacking them. Right. And then you get to the point that you're like, okay, I want to play the game with some,
I want to go somewhere else at
You're
this
getting
point.
all those reps.
Yeah.
You need the reps. It's like practice or working out or anything. You got to train.
Kill deer.
Yeah.
You got to know how to
train.
kill deer.
Yeah. You need the reps. I tell the young people all the time, go shoot some freaking deer with your bow.
Yeah.
Learn how to shoot a deer with a bow.
Yeah.
For sure.
And to be can you get past, Justin and I, we all talk about, can you get past that adrenaline dump? Can you work through that if it's a struggle? Like, put yourself in so many reps that
it's almost muscle memory to a point.
It is. It is. It's funny. I just go into autopilot.
Yeah.
Like I feel like when a buck comes in, I know I want to kill.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys ever do this, but it's like a different world.
Oh, yeah.
And everything goes autopilot, and then all of a sudden, it just shot him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, I just shot him.
Yeah.
And
but
it's almost like I don't remember that 15 seconds right off the bat that just happened. It's just autopilot. Now, that doesn't happen overnight.
No, you got to kill a bunch of deer.
You kill a bunch of deer.
Yeah, you do.
And like Justin was talking about with age, I firmly believe if you can discipline yourself to let a deer get to that 4 or 5 year, especially that 5-year-old, everywhere I've ever hunted, that 5-year-old age, every damn big buck I've ever hunted that's 5 years old, I don't care what state, what province, where I've been, they're all different than the younger deer.
Absolutely.
They are just different.
Yeah.
They act different. They behave different. They react different. They move different. They use everything to their advantage. And that's what they've learned to make it.
Well, just being in the wheelhouse of a big deer like that, and you're in, you're on post and you're in there, and that big deer's in there, whether you get a shot at that animal or not, having those experiences, that's what builds you up to when you do get those opportunities, like then you're cool and calm in those situations. But even still to this day, every deer is a little bit different for me though.
Oh, yeah.
They are.
There's sometimes I'm like, I am a stone cold killer and I am calm and cool. There's other times I'm like, get your shit together.
Yeah, it's wrecked me.
Yeah.
The knees are shaking. It's like, what the hell is going on?
That
right
happened
You've
to me
been down this road before.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
That happened to me 2 years ago. That big tight rack buck that I killed. I don't know why he did it to me. I think it's because I never killed a deer that looked like him or acted. And he's just a mean sucker.
Yep.
It had been a while since, they all get to you.
Oh, yeah.
But usually I can, really let it loose after I shoot. That freaking deer was like, when he started walking down that hill, I was like, fucking, hey, that's it. It was like I was 18 again for a second, and then I told myself, you freaking calm your ass down.
You got to keep it
you
together.
calm your ass, and I had to.
Yeah.
And I ended up making the longest, which is not a long shot, but for me, I shot him at 33, I think it was actually, to be exact. And that's a long shot that I like to take. 33, guys are like, you can shoot him way
I don't
farther.
know, man.
I like
That's a long shot.
I like 25 and in.
We've talked about that a lot.
I like it close.
Maybe it's to the style, right? And Jared, jokingly gives me shit. Like, I set up and I'm point blank. I'm on them.
I've always said I'm
and
it's well deserved because
Jeremy, I'm a slam dunk guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill that sucker right next to him.
Yeah, but
because I make way more slam dunks.
A couple
than
single long hits will fix you guys.
I was never a good 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
Now, Andre jokes about it too. And I like the game of when you get him inside of 20.
Yeah.
You are freaking doing something right.
Well,
when he says he gets close,
I'm on him.
What I'm trying to help him avoid
him.
is single long hits because you don't want to shoot him straight down.
No, I disagree with that.
You disagree that
100%.
You want to hit him.
No, let me tell you, I've killed a lot of deer right below me because I hunt steep and high.
Okay.
So what I do, guys, I shoot down through a lung and blow their heart out. And it tears them apart.
Sure,
but guys, I shoot a heavy setup. I shoot a fixed blade. I have no issues.
That's not going to help.
I just blow through shit.
Yeah.
I've literally blew.
That heart, though, is...
No, I blow the side of the brisket out that it comes out right either side of the brisket bone.
That's a risky shot, dude.
No, it ain't. I've killed...
It is.
I've never lost.
It's riskier than a broadside shot.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I've done it more probably than anybody you know.
It can be done.
Yeah.
How many guys do you know that have done it a lot? I have.
Who
do you know that's done it a lot?
I know a lot of guys that have lost several that way.
I've never lost a deer that way.
If you hit them in the heart, yeah, they're dead.
But
I'm
just blowing down through them, and usually they're 3 to 5 yards below me.
It's not a penetration issue though. Like we'll pass through it too.
It's an angle issue.
Yeah.
It's an angle issue.
I think because of what I've seen, and when I do the gutless method, so I pull everything off and look at it, I see where I'm hitting. I'm examining where my arrow went, and it's...
Let me ask you this, Troy.
Yeah.
Would you prefer that shot than to letting them get 5-10 more yards and then stopping them and having them look back and do it a quarter away? It's still going to be a steep angle.
I hunt such steep ground, a lot of times I'm real high. Do I prefer? I've never had an issue with it. Now, I'm also set up to do it.
I mean, if you have the option, if they're going to come and walk a trail, and you have the option...
or they're going to trying to get me on this.
I'm not trying to get you.
It's a discussion that we have because I
don't like it. I don't like shooting deer straight down.
I'm just
and when I say straight, they're usually 3, 6, 7, 8 yards.
Yeah,
but I'm real high.
Every yard helps in that scenario.
Have you shot any like that?
A lot.
Me too. And I've just been maybe
I've lost. We recovered.
We recovered it about a mile and a half away.
Yeah, on a single lung. And I mean, that deer was a giant mountain buck. His damn lung was outside his body.
So you just hit one lung only.
We assume.
We assume. I mean,
the ones I'm killing.
No, if you hit the heart, he'd have been dead much
sooner. The
sooner.
ones I'm killing all have a hole in their heart.
Yeah, this one didn't. And it was more because...
That'll do it, yeah.
I'm always blowing their heart
It was straight down through the lungs versus just a little bit to the brisket, like you're saying, with the heart.
I'm always angling lung to heart. And I always make sure I angle lung to heart.
Not from straight down.
Yeah, that's a tough angle.
And I mean, I've killed... But
I
I've
don't
killed
hunt that high a lot of times.
a dozen plus.
No, it's a good topic. I love it.
You hunt high?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I have to in the terrain I hunt.
Just because
you got
of
no
how
cover.
steep it is?
Shit,
Are you trying to get to tree line?
My trees, guys, I hunt conifers. My trees don't even have limbs in them until 25 feet up.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
And, guys, I'm hunting shit like this sometimes.
Yeah. So you're eye level.
So if my entrance and exit and setup forces me to be on the downhill side of a buck that I can kill at a specific location that he's frequenting,
get way up
then I got to get up.
Sure.
Because if I don't get up, what I'm really like is 20 feet above him because I'm on the downhill side. Now, I also have spots where I have the high ground on him. And I only need to go 15, 20 feet up because I have the high ground built into it.
Yeah.
So it's that whole discussion is 100% situational.
For sure. We hung stands in the past 2 days that were 8 foot off the ground and that were 48. No, not 48. Probably 30 foot in the air. It's probably as high as we'll go.
The most bucks I had walk by me last year at Justin's, I was 10 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And I had 5 nice bucks walk by. None of them were giants, so I wasn't going to shoot them, but they all walked right by me.
It's all about the cover.
It was all about the cover.
Yeah, for sure.
I loved it. 2 sticks.
Yeah.
It was freaking awesome.
Super.
I'm like,
It
you
is
shit me?
nice.
Well, I was going to say, like, your high sets, what is that? What is that, 5, 6 sticks?
I got a couple sets that are 9 sticks.
9 sticks?
Yeah.
9 sticks.
9 sticks. No bullshit.
Oh, my God. My nose would be
How high is
bleeding.
that?
Guys, I killed a once. I've got a 1.6.
I don't even know if I'd feel comfortable.
Well, and you guys,
I can guarantee you
well,
wouldn't.
you're a logger.
That's high.
But guys, I'm talking Greek to you. But if you lived where I lived,
Yeah.
and you wanted to kill, and you figured out that made a difference because of what the terrain offered you,
Yeah.
you're not telling me you wouldn't put yourself in a situation where you
for
could,
sure.
Well, I understand why you're doing it.
And
I
it's-
mean, the
it's all-
cover's high in the terrain.
And the terrain.
9 sticks, though?
I have 2 spots that are. I have.
What's
2
that put you, like 50 foot up?
No shit. No, that only puts you about 33.
He doesn't have long legs. like that.
33?
No.
I'm getting that high with 3 lone wolf sticks.
Well, here, hey,
17 inchers.
This industry's topic.
He's doing muscle ups to the next
traded,
one.
Guys, when you go that hot, and guys, I don't want to come across I'm a 9-stick guy. I'm not, but I have a couple spots.
You might say I'm pretty serious.
Guys, I have a couple spots.
You could call me a 9-stick guy.
When you go high, you don't want your shit spread out because you're high.
Yeah,
you don't want
to have to be making big.
You don't take big steps.
Yeah.
You take care of yourself by keeping everything real close.
Yeah, tight.
Very safe.
We're going to get you in one of those sticks where they all stick together with a...
You guys might take 6 or 7 sticks and stretch them way out and be the same height as me.
Very possible.
I'm doing it all for safety and care. I'm, really
30 feet is not unreasonably high. I would say my highest 2 sets are just over 30. However, most trees that I would get that high in have limbs. So we'll use
the limbs more than it's not just straight sticks. It's like two sticks, limb, a stick.
I do that.
Stand.
You guys probably aren't familiar with like Douglas fir and tamarack.
I know what you're talking
There's
about.
no limbs.
Yeah, it's just nothing.
To get to the cover, you got to be a lot of times 25.
Yeah.
And because the terrain dictates it, I don't mind because it also puts me in a better wind current. It puts me out of their eyesight, and I end up shooting a lot of deer that have no freaking clue I'm there. You can ask Andre about this. We've talked about this. When you get those right setups with that, they walk under you and can't get your scent.
They have no idea.
Because it's over the top of them.
Yeah.
Boy, 9 sticks, though.
I do have a couple that are that high.
That stand that we hung, Carl's Corner, is 4 or 5?
5 sticks.
5 sticks, and I'd say it's
30.
over 30 foot.
32.
Yeah, but you guys are spacing them way out.
I don't think on that.
More than me.
Maybe.
I got a couple sets on my farm.
It's tugging at my groin when I'm taking the steps. So
I've got long legs too. Short torso, long legs.
And my only 2 that are that high, guys, are on low side of the mountain.
The Hunter Podcast is brought to you by Quest Hunt Co.
Man, it seems like as technology and social media and stuff just gets incorporated into our daily lives in the deer season more and more, it's like we're always looking for ways to just dial it back, spend more quality time with deer hunters, and really make deer hunting and deer camps great again.
Yeah, and I mean, we've all been part of that annual buck pull, whether it's at your camp or the local fire department, and we're trying to bring that feeling back with Quest Hunt Co. to be able to compete against other people in your state, but also be part of a national competition.
You can sign up in as many states as you want to enter deer that at the end are going to get scored, and you have an opportunity to win some big prizes. And there's an in-person banquet in February that Jeremy and I are going to be at where those prizes are going to get held out. I think we're going to do some sort of live podcast or speaking. We'll figure that out. But just looking forward to spending time with people who sign up for the tournament.
Yeah, so you can go to Quest Hunt Co. and sign up. Use the code HUNTR15 at checkout. They'll save you a little bit of money, and then hopefully we'll be able to see you in Missouri in February of 25 at the annual convention.
To make this season a quest.
This was kind of my listing this morning in the group. Sorry, not to interrupt you, but like the talking to the killers, right, in the group, and I think I asked 6 or 7 of you guys, right, mainly around their setups, like hey, you carry rattling antlers in? Hey, no, we don't. None of you guys call.
I think we're more like silent assassins. We kind of let the deer.
Now
do their
I
thing.
will say this: if I'm hunting Iowa,
because it works.
Yeah, the snort wheeze is deadly.
I'm a snort wheezer, just with my mouth. I mean,
just with your mouth. Yeah,
it's been more deadly.
I've killed 2 of them out here that way.
Oh yeah,
some of my best bucks, Ty's biggest bucks.
But no grunt, no.
I do. I carry a soft social doe grunt because it never ever spooks a deer.
What's that sound like? Hey,
real soft. Yeah, real sexy.
Hey.
Yeah, real sweet. But I learned that from years ago.
Ladies,
you're not going to threaten a big buck with that.
Yeah.
Because every now and then you'll run into a big racked buck that you're trying to kill that may not be the alpha of the group.
Well, it goes back to the demeanor side of things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And no rattling?
No, not much.
Most people would agree with the snort wheeze. It's like a
snort
pretty
wheeze
deadly.
I would rather snort wheeze a buck back to me than rattling.
Again, demeanor, because there's some bucks that they're not a fighter.
Yeah.
They don't like it.
I snort wheezed in floppy last year.
Yeah.
I used to rattle back in the day, but I've never rattled in a mature deer.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I live in an area where everybody freaking rattles.
Yeah.
Everybody's rattling on clear cuts and 2 months a rifle, and everybody's rattling. So I love the grunt. I love a snort wheeze, and I use it like minimally, but when it's needed.
So it's interesting you say that because we, if we're in Kansas, like Kansas rattle, I mean, there's mature bucks running all over the place.
I take that back. I
Kansas.
just lied to you guys. I did rattle on a buck and kill one in Kansas.
I mean, they're running all over.
I haven't
the place.
hunted Kansas yet, and I need to because that's where my family is.
It's actually on one of the old Whitetail Addictions episodes.
Is it?
Yeah, I rattled in 9 bucks at one.
Yeah, that sounds like Kansas.
9. Okay. 9 sticks.
So to be fair,
9 sticks for me.
Yeah, to be fair to the listeners, if it would work on a mature buck, I'm all in.
Yeah.
It's situational too.
It is.
The best case is if you see them off and you can understand what they're doing already, and then crack them. I've had them come all the way like a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also snort wheeze at a lot of those bucks and not have to pack antlers in.
There's a distance thing there though.
That distant in a wind thing for us. Like if we're in Kansas, I mean, I could be grunting my ass off. I could be snort wheezing.
Well, you start.
So you got to bang them together.
I started with the snort wheeze. You just do it as loud as you can, and if they don't turn, then I'm cracking.
Again, everything's situational.
It is.
It really is.
Well, we talk about that. So like north of us is Allegheny National Forest, giant, big timber, big ridges and stuff, and like a couple of the guys that really successful big buck hunters in there are like they're guy's name's Steve Shirk. If Steve's listening to this, we call it shirking off. He's grunting like every
Constantly.
3 minutes. Every 3 minutes. And he's like these deer in like late October, November are just moving so much.
So
he's like, if I don't make a sound for 10 minutes, he's like, they could be past me. He's like, so every 3 minutes, he's just.
I'll say this: when I go to Canada this year, I'm taking rattling antlers because those deer fight and they're big, and I see broken tines in the pictures, and they're big and they make a lot of noise, and they're not getting the kind of pressure I think I see where I'm at home.
Yeah. I think the pressure thing, like that's why Kansas, I mean, you're in some of those just vast areas of Kansas. Man, you crack those together, they're like, that's a buck. Yeah. They don't think, like in Pennsylvania, you crack them, they're like, where's he at? There's a guy in a tree somewhere, like right now.
Exactly.
I would say, I'm not that I'm blind calling as much, but what I'm calling, it's an aggressive call.
Yeah.
Like the snort wheeze is aggressive.
Roar.
Well, it's appropriate for the distance, right? I don't want to freak them out, but like I don't really grunt like the traditional. Like you see guys just bruh, bruh. It's almost right to a roar with some complimentary like tending grunts. Just because the mature bucks that I've seen on our farm, that's what they do.
Well, let's flip it. On a quiet day, what do you do? Real quiet, dead quiet. I do a soft social doe grunt.
See, I'm still.
What does a doe grunt sound like?
Real soft, real like you.
First of all, you're making it out of a.
No, I have a call, but if you sit with deer enough, you listen to them. So I mimic the deer in my area, and that soft social doe grunt sounds like my does talking to their fawns.
There you go. So like I'm on a quiet day, depending, like let's say late October, November, like rut activity. I'm usually doing like soft tending grunts, but like deeper.
But you're doing putt grunts.
Yep, putt.
Yeah. I really throw a lot of doe out there during the rut. Just doe only. And then a snort wheeze to challenge a buck. And we've killed some hammers with a snort wheeze.
Oh yeah, dude. I've killed.
I don't know if I've ever heard a doe grunt. I mean, you
definitely have.
Whatever some of these calls have the slide up thing. I'm like, oh, I guess that's what a doe grunts. But in the wild, I've never heard that.
When the does grunt in my woods, it's so subtle that you go, oh yeah, there she is. But I've also sat in a tree for 30 plus years.
Yeah,
listening.
I've had does out here in Iowa before that I would have swore that was a buck coming.
Yep.
And the next thing I know, I'm like, here comes
a
a doe.
doe.
Here comes a doe with a fawn. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
And that's applicable to where you're at. Like tune into what your deer sound like where you're hunting them.
Yeah, I like the. Again, you go back to the watching side. Even if it's a new area, Kansas, Iowa, whatever, Illinois, I know that deer's demeanor the moment I see him. I'm like, that deer will floppy. That deer will come into a snort wheeze. He's that, or another deer. I'm like, he's not gonna like a snort wheeze, but he will like a tending grunt. He will pull in. And you just have to be able to read that deer and then adapt it to that.
You got to be locked in to what every different deer is doing.
Yep. I killed a buck on one of our addictions episodes in Iowa. This would have been back in 2011. And I seen that deer the day before and just knew, like, he just had an attitude. You could just see it in him. So I moved that set.
buck on the corn cam this morning. You could just tell, look at him. He's got an attitude.
There's
big old gnarly
deer
8
that
point.
Just have that. And I seen that deer the day before, and I said, that deer's got an attitude. I got to move this set. So I moved that set during a rainstorm. Moved it maybe 80 yards, climbed back in it. He came out of that same ditch the next morning, and he skirted me a little bit going up through these cedars. And I knew as soon as he got behind that cedar, I was like, I know I can snort wheeze this deer in. And you can watch it all. You can see this whole thing on video. And I snort wheezed that deer, and you could just see his rack turn around.
He said, "What the?
And
what did you say to me?"
And he stood there, and you could just see his rack turning like this, and he turned back the other way. And was facing the other way. I did it again. I mean, and he was instantly pissed. And he marched all the way down that hillside, bristled up, and I shot him at 25 yards. I mean, but
deadly.
Seeing that and seeing, that demeanor, because I've done that before and didn't play it right.
Yeah.
and hit that, and that deer said,
"No, I'm out.
I'm out of here."
And he's had his ass kicked by somebody that bothers him.
I killed one
in
Kansas. I think it was the first one I ever killed in Kansas, 2013. It was just 155-inch 10. I had 3 or 4 camera pictures of him. Every time I saw him, ears laid back, just pissy, right? I remember like turning around. There were some other bucks around. I see this deer coming in, ears laid back. He starts going to push this deer out of frame, and it was the liver, the one I shot in the liver, and he starts going out of frame. Yeah, oh God, I livered him, and starts going out of frame, and I snort wheeze at him, and it's like 2 seconds, and you hear him snort wheeze right back, and then boom, starts the march right back into me, and then shot him at 25 yards.
That's fun when they snort wheeze back.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I
mean, it's like, at that point, it's like, shit, got your ass. Yeah, and I mean, there it is. But it was intel from the camera, knowing that ears back demeanor, like this dude, he's here to just beat the shit out of people. Whereas there's other deer that it's like, I don't know. I don't remember if I snort wheezed at that deer in Illinois last year. I think I blind grunted him in because there was a bunch of little bucks just all around me, but I could hear him in the leaves just like he was basically just real heavy stepping, like he's gonna make his presence known. And he was a 5 or 6 year old buck, but yeah, you just read those demeanors on those deer, and although I didn't think he would give me, because he actually snort wheezed when he was in the field, but he was looking right through me.
Yeah,
I mean, right. I was like,
the smaller antlered ones always seem to have not always, but most of them seem to have the attitude. Yeah,
it's a little.
You could just look at a cannonball and be like,
that's teenager syndrome.
It is.
They think they can whip anybody in the world.
That's exactly it, man. Yeah, and they're fighters, man. They're just stocky and they're built to fight. They're compact. Like those guys aren't really gonna break anything because it's just all in there and tight and compact. They're there to fight.
Why do those deer seem to always live too? They always outlast every other big, high scoring, beautiful genetic kind of deer.
Because those ones probably get killed younger, probably.
Yeah,
like when they're 3 or 4.
Or, I mean, the other thing you don't think about, and you probably see this in your area, is, when we were doing research, it's between 10 and 15% of mature bucks die of natural causes every year. And the number one is usually like a brain abscess. And so when those bucks in that 3, 4, 5-year-old age class start to fight, there's, everybody's looked at a skull plate, and you see kind of the cranium line and skull plate. That's flexing every time they're fighting, right? And what happens is when that gets open, bacteria gets in and it forms an abscess in their brain and eventually kills them. And so when you think about a lot of these areas where there's like intense fighting, or you think about those big genetic deer, the more leverage they have, well, guess what? The more that's interesting. Whereas when they're tight and compact like that, there's not nearly as much flex on that skull cap.
I've never heard that.
If you pick up like that deer's skull cap, probably you could feel
it makes total sense because of where that line is right there and how it would flex with the bigger antlers.
And so that's what drives us crazy, right? But you see it in like where you're at in the mountains, when you get those deer that are in that 5, 6, 7 year, a lot of those deer die of natural causes because of that brain abscess. It's just the older they get, the more intense fighting that happens, the more pressure and leverage, the more chance of bacteria getting down on that brain and killing them. But it's north of 10 to 15% depending on what the age structure is in your area. Like Pennsylvania, it's probably not nearly that high. But in an Iowa or in an Idaho mountains, I bet it's 15% of those bucks in that older age class are dying from that every year.
It makes complete sense.
It does.
I mean, it's almost logic now that you say that.
It's just how it is, man. And it's a hard thing for us to take in. We talked about passing and getting them mature, and it's like, deer just die.
Yeah,
they just die.
I see that a lot. Deer just disappear on me. Yeah, in the mountains. Well, they just nobody here. They don't get shot. And I got predators too.
Sure.
But adding in that 10 or 15 more percent, that's a real thing.
It's a big thing.
That just opens up my eyes to I've had some deer that just in their greatest years, 6, 7 years old, they just disappear. They're just gone.
Remember that first year that you came down and hunted with me, and I had that deer behind my house.
Yep.
That I called Billy Club. I'm like, will you please kill that freaking thing?
Right, you wanted him out.
Yeah, because he was literally just running the place. Running everything out of there. And that deer literally, I think he lived all the way up till last year, so he had to be 10 or 11. And I'm like, man, will somebody kill this thing or will he get hit by a car? I don't care, but he wrecked that farm over there.
Steve had Ty kill that.
You let him live for 11 years?
Yeah.
I guess you only got one tag in Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's
and I would have better scoring deer that I'd go chase on other places or whatever. But I did kill a big one back there, and it was funny that one year. I do believe that deer that I ended up hunting and killing back there, he did run him across the street.
Yeah, pushed him.
And he stayed back there, and then as soon as I took that deer, he was right
Sponged straight back in.
Well, Steve had Ty kill that bully this last year. Steve's like, Ty, you interested in this deer? And Ty's like, hell yeah. And Steve's like, this deer will come in on a string. He's a bully.
Yep.
He wants to kick everybody off and everybody out of everywhere.
Yep.
And Steve just said, we got to wait for the right wind. We'll go get him.
That was a big mission of ours on the Illinois place this year.
Huge.
We shot 3 of the, 5, maybe low scoring, older.
Yeah, 135 to 145, 5-year-old plus.
That's right where Ty was.
We shot 3 of them, yeah.
140-inch 5-year-old.
2 5-year-olds.
We were trying to kill them all. Like we brought the dads out. We're like, hey, kill them all.
Yeah. I had one other one in front of me. G4 was in front of me. Is that the last of the bully bucks? Maybe some other up and. I mean, Jeremy shot what did he score? 125.
129.
129, just tight 5-year-old 8-point.
Broken up, had been beating the shit out of people.
And then I shot 2 8-points in the 30s as well, a 5 and a 6-year-old.
Well, you guys know Skip well. I mean, talk to Skip about the bully.
He's like, that's
thing.
the biggest part of the work on the farm. He's like, all the farming's great. He's like, I need people to come kill deer.
Yeah.
Well, I even do it in the mountains in public with bully bucks in Idaho because I get 2 tags.
Oh, you do get 2.
So that second tag.
We get 2 tags in Illinois this year too.
I'm happy with a second tag helping the herd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're taking out a lot of times they're the shittiest genetics.
Yeah.
So,
dude, I love hunting with bully bucks.
There's people that argue and say you're not making a difference. I'll say I disagree because I've seen
I disagree.
I've got some pockets of whitetails from 20 and 30 years back that those genetics are still incredible. We're talking 20 and 30 years of pockets. And we always, you either shoot the old mature stud, the best buck you can hunt, or you take a bully out.
Yep. Well, my house, just in Pennsylvania, I've got 28 acres behind a house, but it's part of 50,000+ of public and timber ground, and it funnels down into my place. There was an 8-point that was probably 9 or 10 years old, like really weak G3s, good G2, but in big frame. Every buck that I saw last year on my property had that gene. Yeah. In fact, my youngest killed a 2-year-old that looked spitting image of him as a 2-year-old. The year before, he killed a 1-year-old spitting image of, and it's just like it is absolutely what's running that area. Period.
It's so critical to get those deer out of there too because they will rule that farm.
Yeah,
they'll rule the drainage. They'll rule my pocket.
Everything.
Exactly.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what we've been working on, man. We killed 3 of those, and we've got one. We have one left for sure. That's around there.
G4's got to go.
Yeah.
But in Ohio, you get 1 tag.
That's where it makes it tough.
Can't do it, man.
So
not that I would advocate for more, but yeah, it would help.
Yeah, in that circumstance, it would definitely help. But that's where maybe
you bring people in, man.
Yeah, bring people in.
But you got to have trusted guys because I've got one in Southern Ohio. I didn't hunt him hard last year, but this year he's a mainframe 6x5, but super tight and heavy. And he's an awesome buck. He's probably 6 years old.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put my dad over there and be like, Dad, kill that deer. But there's also 2 150-inch 3-years that some bitch is whacking if they walk by, So it's like, listen.
Or he'll shoot at him at least.
Yeah. He's going to let arrows fly. So it's I want you to kill this one.
Strategically, we want that one gone.
So you're saying your dad ain't going to give a shit if one of those 50s walks by.
Oh, he is just smoking the shit out of it.
That's my hesitation to bring him out to the Illinois farm because he's going to stick a 180 in the ass.
I sent him a picture. I got this 6x5 with a split G3. 3-year-old, probably 155-inch 3-year-old, and he's like, I'll claim dibs on that on day one. I was like, no, we're not killing that dude. There's no dibs on this thing.
We were in Kansas a few years ago, and the thing with the Kansas has turned into like a dad's trip. So whenever we draw, we bring the dads out, and it's all public land. So there's some leases that we can set them up on, and your dad missed a really good one, right? I believe.
Yeah. Yes.
A stud. Like we had cell cameras deployed and stuff. Got a picture of a good one.
Probably 60s, 10 point. Yeah.
Put him in there the next morning, and then sure enough, get the call or whatever. He's like, I hit the big one. I hit the big one or whatever. And then Jeremy goes over and tries to help him recover it. And
fortunately, I was already tagged out. I already shot.
Yep. What was the deal? No blood. Like
no blood, no arrow.
Classic. Like,
no
I don't
arrow.
know what happened. And then the doubt starts. And then, sure enough, like, we didn't find anything. No sign of a hit or anything. And then later on, we're back at the house, and Jeremy, he's like, I'm going to shoot your bow and just, like, make sure it's on. And so he shoots it, and he's like, dude, it's dead nuts. I'm not sure what happened. And he's like, well, what pin were you using? He's like, I was using my 15-yard pin. And we're like, what? Like, dude, there is no 15. Or is that what he said? Like,
no, 10-yard pin.
I use my 10-yard pin. And you're like, there's no 10-yard pin, dude.
Yeah, it's 20, 30, 40.
So, I mean, that's what we're dealing with here.
So the arrow was in somewhere in the atmosphere.
Well, it was funny. Was it 3 or 4 years ago? Andre said, hey, why don't you come out? You draw your Iowa tag, come out and hunt. And I said, okay. So I come out. It's during the rut. I get here, and it's warm. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of, and I got here a little bit late. He goes, hey, let's just run over here to the woodlot. He goes, I got a set up there. You can just jump in this evening, and then I'll go jump in this other set or whatever. I said, okay. So I'm in there, and at last light, here comes this huge bodied deer. And I'm like, man, what is it? Is it a buck? I'm like, it's got to be a buck. And it's getting closer. Then I could see it's a good buck. And it comes in, and it was probably, well, one of the neighbors ended up killing it. It was a 160-inch 8.
It's a giant 8.
Yeah, it's
a big mass, big and just big, heavy mass and stuff like that. Well, it's Andre's farm, and I'm like,
you be careful.
I don't want to just drop the hammer on something, first 2 hours of the first day kind of. So it comes in, it's working this scrape at 15 yards, and I'm videoing. I'm like, man, should I shoot this thing or what? And I'm like going round and round. I'm like, well, I got plenty of days. I got 10 days to be out here to get it done. So I pass it up, and I get back to the house, and he's like, what'd you see? And I showed him the video. He goes, dude, you should have shot that thing. And I was like, well, I was thinking about, I was this close to shooting. He goes, no, that's a good buck. Well, a couple of days later, we pull a trail camera card, and he had some lone wolf cameras over here on video mode, and we got a video of that deer. And I said, dude, that's the deer I passed. He goes, why would you pass that deer? I'm like, dude, I don't want to go shooting a small deer over here on your place.
Yeah. He also doesn't want you killing the biggest deer on this place either.
Yeah, because that year he had this non-typical that was running this area. Year before, or that winter, me, Andre, and Heath were out here shed hunting. Heath found one side to it. The one side scored 126.
Oh, my God.
Whoa. Huge.
Yeah.
Biggest shed I've ever held.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, you made Pope and Young.
Yeah, he made it.
With one side.
He made it.
Yeah. With one side.
So that was the deer that Andre was after going into the season. And I wasn't in the stand 30, 40 minutes. I texted him. I said, hey, that non-typical's up here running around. And he said, and he texted me back, and he said, are you serious? I was like, yeah, can I shoot him? Absolutely not. So
really?
And then he texts back, he goes, okay.
Thank you.
He goes, well, if you get a shot. So when I got back,
like, well, yeah, I'm only going to shoot him if I get a shot.
And I was showing him that footage of that other one.
Yeah. Cracking it.
He goes, did you really see the non-typical? I'm like, no, I didn't see it.
I know.
You would have saw him
just
like inching in right up over the top.
Hey, but what a guy. He actually thought about it and went, go ahead.
Yeah.
On a 250-inch deer.
Oh, it was huge.
Yeah.
Neighbor killed it.
So there's Andre right there.
Yeah.
Thought about it a little bit and goes, go ahead if you get a shot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty freaking cool.
Unless you're Cody.
Unless you're Cody.
Then back off.
Get fucked. Oh, man. It's funny, dude. But, yeah, it's that kind of call aspect and demeanor of those bucks and stuff. And, yeah, it's hard. People hear, like Jared and I talk, and even if it's just us on the podcast, and we'll talk about deer that we're passing up or stuff, and that, I think they instantly jump to the thing like whatever. Oh, you're just spoiled, or you're
must be nice.
Yeah, must be nice. Whatever it is, and
that
it's
gets
like
thrown around a lot.
It's like, listen, man. Like if I'm in Ohio, I've got one tag, and like I'm okay not filling that tag. I don't want to shoot something that I'm not satisfied with or
not
feel
okay
like,
with it, but
if it happens, it happens.
It does
right?
happen.
I'd rather end the season with that tag than have shot a buck that frankly just wasn't what I set out to do.
And if you guys are established in places or outside of Pennsylvania, obviously as you are, the long game's cool.
Yep. Oh, dude.
He rolls through, he gets through the year, you come back hunting him next year.
Yeah.
And he's a better deer usually.
Yeah.
So that whole long game perspective to me is like, that's what I think a lot of us guys evolve to where there's a lot of reward in the long game. All the work you put in, how you take care of them in the off season, how you do let them walk, you learn from them, and then they get to this prime of their life, and then
Well, that's the hardest.
That's the thing
part.
on the home farm too, where you're saying earlier, it's like, yeah, you want to kill them, and like September, October, anticipation's high. Here's the strategy, and then mid-November rolls around, and you're like, man, or gun season gets past, you're like, boy, he's still out there. You're like, boy, I wonder what you look like next year. You start having like, you convince yourself almost not to hunt them or not to hunt them as aggressively.
I almost don't hunt some of those deer. Like there are certain deer that are like maybe borderline, and I'm like, man, October, November, I'm trying to kill this deer, and then like he gets through gun season, I get to December, and frankly, I kind of just look away. Because at that point, I'm like, he was borderline anyways. Like, I wanted to kill him, but I didn't want to kill him. Now he's through it, and it's like, I just don't want to hunt him. I don't want to be tempted at that point.
That's a hard dynamic when other guys that hunt your place, like, if they don't have the same mentality, maybe they're just getting more and more desperate. They're like, I'm running out of time here.
Arrows are about
and you're
to
feeling
sling.
more and more like, well, I don't want you in this spot because it's like,
He made it.
You know what's really funny, too, is like when you keep track of a deer for years, I had this experience. I've had this before, but I really had this experience a few years ago. And I killed the biggest buck of my life, and I had 4 years of history with the deer. So when I finally killed the deer and walked up on the deer, the feeling I thought I was going to have versus the feeling that I did have was completely different. I was like, I wanted this deer. Mm-hmm. But when I walked up on him, I was like,
it's over.
A shame.
I don't get to.
It's over.
I don't get to chase him anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't get to get those pictures and glass him in the bean fields in the summer and look for his sheds and all those things. Like
Winky's done a nice job, I think, of recapping that. Like when he killed like the double G4 bucket, because it consumes so much of your time and effort, and it's like everything you did was based around killing that deer. That he was what you were doing, and then when it's gone, it's like the farm feels empty.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I've killed multiple deer that I've known for 4 years.
Yeah,
and just like Justin, I just have this. When you get them after knowing them for even 3 years, but 4 is a lot of years. Mm-hmm. It's like this respect thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, holy shit, dude. Yeah. It's like.
Well, I think that culmination, that pinnacle, like most people look at it as a bell curve. It's sharp drop. Like you got there, you killed them, and then it drops real fast because now you're like, it's over.
Yeah.
It doesn't fade out as much as it, faded in.
Which is why playing the long game on multiple bucks and having more than just one or two in your back pocket is cool, because then you can like focus your attention.
Yeah.
After you get through, then you start thinking about, okay, like who's next?
Yeah.
Who's in that category that, I've spent a lot of time with and know, and then just having a lineup you have a great depth chart versus one or two.
Well, that's what I love.
It's options. Options killed, that's what leads to consistent success.
People will talk about, because Jared and I are hunting, he's got North Dakota, I've got Kentucky. We've got Ohio, we've got Illinois, and we've got Iowa this year. So
it's like a royal flush of tags.
In theory, and we'll be stretched, right? But hunting the long game on most of those, Iowa being the one that we're not really hunting the long game on, it's like there's always a chess match going on somewhere else in my head.
Exactly.
And so
and you're playing a bunch of different games. It's like being on like the Florida casino. It's like I'm playing 5 games at once, and on this one here I'm betting big. And on this one here, it's like, okay,
I'm about to close the deal here,
out,
and I'm behind over here, right? Like and I think people have a tough time. I would, like when I was growing up, and I didn't even get out of Pennsylvania. Like I didn't know that I could even go to Ohio or how to do that to hunt. Now it's like I love that kind of mindset of like, I might be sitting in the stand in Ohio, but I'm looking at, my map in Illinois thinking like, what am I going to do next week?
Right.
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Spartan Forge.
Dude, maps, mapping, right?
Yeah.
It all starts with a map, a visualization of a new property, into the fine tuning of different food plots, different habitat projects, where those are going to go, all the way to sharing pins and looking kind of like beyond the layers with something like a LiDAR, which is exclusive to Spartan Forge as of now.
Yeah, and whether we're looking at it from a management side to put in food plots or switchgrass, or if we're taking a run and gun public approach on Kansas, it all starts with a map. It starts with a strategy there. You and I are going to have our own Blue Force team, which will allow us to run our own devices, but be able to see what you're adding or what I'm adding to that single map, which is really going to be critical moving forward this hunting season.
That's right. So if you're looking for a mapping software to try out this year, or maybe you're just like not getting what you need out of the one you're using currently, Bill's offered us a promo code of HUNTR20, HUNTR20, that you guys can use to get your own subscription up and rolling. Check out Spartan Forge, download the app, use that promo code, and we'll be using that this year.
Make sure you check out Spartan Forge.
And I don't like just having one deer. Like, I like having a number one deer, but I'm going to have another deer or two.
Mm-hmm. I'm not there. Whether I get there or not, I'm an opportunist. I'm like, hey, there's 2 mature bucks in this spot I would shoot.
Yeah, so I still like to have another deer or two that I would shoot if they got in front of me.
Yep.
Because I look back and like I chased a deer like in my 2009, 2010, and I was so dead set on that deer, and I got beat, and somebody else killed that deer, and it was like, now what?
Yeah.
Like, and it so set me back.
Who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that, I was like, man, okay, I got to have options, and I can't play this game of like, just having just that one particular animal to chase. So now I try to have at least 2 or 3 that I'd be willing to put my tag on.
I'm kind of a one buck guy, and again, we're talking situational. Like Iowa might be different, but like if I'm in Ohio or Kentucky, when the season starts, there will be one deer, and I don't even think about the other ones. Now if a opportunistic buck comes through that it's like, whoa, that's a giant, where'd he come from or whatever, I'll shoot him. Yep. But the entire time, like I'm one-on-one. And that's just how my mind. It's kind of a sport. Like I was a track guy, so like in track and stuff, it was just me versus everybody else. So like my mindset is always that one-on-one mindset, and it allows me to focus in. Now I miss opportunities, and in that case, like I'll have blown opportunities, but I'm so laser focused on that deer that it's just micro movements with me and him. Like the world around me is a blur almost.
Yep.
It's weird.
I think we're a lot like that too, and I think what Justin and I are kind of referring to is we are laser on the one deer we want to kill that's number one.
Yeah.
So let's say some bitch gets killed.
Oh yeah. Then you're ruined.
What we love is having 2, 3, and 4 studs.
Yes.
Now that comes with the work,
correct.
The effort,
Yeah, you got to
getting
find
the properties. For me, it's covering the ground, finding one. So I think
I had pictures of 2 180s one summer that I was watching throughout the summer, and a buck that was in the low 170s. And when season came around, I wasn't getting pictures of those 180s, but that low 170s buck, I was getting pictures of him constantly. And I went in there and killed that buck in the second night of season on a mock scrape. I never got pictures of those other 2.
Can't kill them if they aren't there, man.
Season, and both got killed.
So you're happy with that choice?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a great choice.
Yeah.
I just think it gives you confidence too, based on the work you've put in to build that depth chart of bucks. It gives you confidence to like hunt your ass off.
Oh yeah,
because you're like, I'm not just in it with my number 1. My number 2 and 3 are freaking badass bucks. Yep. Now, if there's a big drop off, that's different.
Yeah, that's different.
That's way different. So
I had over 100 days hunting last year. Now I killed 3 bucks.
Exactly.
But I killed myself doing it. I mean, I killed my last buck on January 31st.
Yeah, that's you're taking it to the wire.
And I was out there with you for almost 10 of those.
Yeah.
And you were freaking going, just like we were.
And that was in January, wasn't it?
Yeah, late December, early January.
December,
And Justin, he'd put in a lot of time. So Ty and I get there, we got 8 days to hunt. We're going hard.
Yeah, you're going
because you're so great. It's 8 days. Justin's hunting as hard as we are in his. How many days you say you hunted last year?
At least 100 days.
Right. So in your number 80s, roughly.
I'm like, are there even that many days in a season?
Justin, in your 80s or 90s, the first thing I picked up on is Justin is freaking grinding this like Ty and I are on an 8-day
rut
hunt.
worn at that point.
Yeah.
I was,
And he was a grouchy bastard. No,
I bet I would be too, man.
I was about to get divorced.
Yeah, you're dragging at that point.
Well, I started off September 2nd in Kentucky. Andre and I went down there, and then I shot my last buck January 31st in Ohio.
Where did you kill last year? So Ohio, Kentucky,
and then I hit another deer. I shot a 186 on November 20th, and couldn't find it
in Ohio.
In Ohio,
yeah.
And then in March,
shoot it straight down.
Didn't shoot it straight down.
Hey,
I'm gonna bust your balls on that.
you just come over to my house sometime. I'll show you all those.
I've seen them. Yeah.
So we went to extremes looking for this deer. I tracked him for 80 yards. Had a guy come in with a thermal drone, the whole 9 yards. We got fixated on some other deer across the road that ended up not even being my buck, and it was somebody else's deer that was shot.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yes, it was.
Another 186?
No, it was a smaller deer, but it was in a brush pile.
You just knew it was a dead deer, so
it was still alive. You could just see his rack move every once in a while. We found that deer that evening. We came back the next morning, and he was still there. We're like, that's got to be him. I had to get access to the property, so that took me all day to get access in there. Then by the time we came back that evening, we got into a different position, flew the drone in, got over top of it. He was still there. I got dressed. I was going to go in there and put a stalk on a deer and see if I couldn't put a shot on him. He got up in that time frame when I was getting dressed and bedded down in another spot in the opening, and it wasn't him. So we spent all this wasted time.
Wow.
And I was so fixated on that deer either going north or west, and because that's the way the blood went. Mm-hmm. And so that morning when I shot that deer, my buddy that owns the farm, he started picking the corn. That deer came out of the corn from the south that morning and came into that woodlot when I shot him. So it kind of
had to loop around somehow?
Yeah, so it had to loop around, and he's out there in a combine picking that cornfield. Well, I wouldn't have thought that deer would have went back through the corn with him being out there. Well, we took that thermal drone and searched all over, but we only went to the south fence line. So a buddy of mine who's a local police officer, he calls me and says, hey, somebody found your deer.
And this is when?
This is in March
now.
Right.
In March, right.
Wow.
Right.
And I'm like, because the deer never showed back up on camera, never had any sightings or anything. And I was just crushed because this was like, this was the deer that I hunted all year.
Yeah.
And so we only went to that south fence line over there.
Yep.
If we would have went one more fence line over, that's where he was. Mm-hmm. And he was laying there dead. And I ended up, he got a name to the guy. I found the guy on Facebook. I messaged him and gave him my phone number. I said, hey, I'd like to get on a phone call with you. I heard you found a big deer, whatever. I shot him my phone number. Within 30 seconds, he called me. Mm-hmm. And we got on the phone. We started talking, this and that. I sent him over because I had it all on video. Mm-hmm. And so that was huge having that because I don't know if I wouldn't have had it on a video, I don't know if I would have got the deer. So he's like, look, I got to do the right thing. That's your deer.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, so where do we go from there? So he had already contacted Division of Wildlife
for a salvage tag or whatever, carcass tag.
And they call it a certificate is what Ohio calls it. And so then I ended up reaching out to the game warden. He texted me back, and then he emailed me the certificate. So then I was able to go over and finally get my buck. So
kind of lucked out there, dude. I mean, because a lot of people find a buck like that, they're keeping it.
I didn't think I was going to get that.
Same thing happened to Jeremy this year on a Pennsylvania deer.
Yep.
You couldn't find it. Didn't bring the drone up because in PA you can't. We went through that whole can't you.
I called him. Yeah. I called the drone guy. He was like, I'll come out and do it just to make sure. I called a couple COs and they're like, it's a gray area. Yeah. And like in our position, can't take that risk. And it was really late. It was June, I think. And a guy was bush hogging, a guy that I've talked to, met through the podcast. And he's like, hey, man, he's like, what's your deer look like? And I told him. And
it was through the podcast that he had heard the story of you hit this deer and he ran.
And we had talked before because we had shared some deer. We're about a mile and a half, 2 miles apart, like pretty far. And he's like, hey, he's like, I think this is your deer. And it was.
Well, it's funny you guys bring this up. I'm on the opposite end of that. I shot a velvet buck years ago, and he went on. I was hunting up on the top of a big mountain timber company, but he died down in a public or on a private place. And I searched everywhere for him and never did find him. Come to find out, and I always wondered because there's these people that live down at the bottom where I go in this gate, and they don't hunt. And I don't think they really like me going in behind their place, but it's not their property.
Sure.
Anyway, one day I ran into the guy out at the gate and the wife, and I could just tell they're very pretentious about hunters and me being around there because they like to hike the mountain. And
yeah, they think like you're a threat out there or something.
They honestly think they own the mountain.
Of course.
They don't own it. It's not their land. And we got on the subject, and I said, hey, years ago I lost a really big buck. And I think he might have come down on your land, and I purposely didn't go on your property, and you guys weren't home on the days I was looking for him. Nobody was around, so I just chalked it up till I lost that deer, and it sucked. And they go, oh, yeah, we found a big one. I go, was he in velvet? And they go, yeah. And I go, do you have him? They go, yeah, he's in our house. I go, can I see him? And they go, no.
Oh.
Wow. And then to rub a little salt in the wind, they said, and we won the big buck contest with him, and we don't even hunt.
Oh.
I'm not shitting you. That's straight up how they.
Sons of bitches.
That's how they handled it.
Lee Gatsky shot that buck down in Kansas that time. It was a 200-inch deer, and it went over on the neighbor's property.
Wouldn't give it back.
And they would not give it.
And they don't have to, do they?
No, they still have it to this day.
Yeah, mine was nowhere near 200, but it was a nice big mountain buck.
It was a 200-inch deer.
I mean, shit, 200, I'd really be fighting for that. But
yeah,
I was just really shocked at the way they talked to me about that. And so here's what bothers me is I drove through that gate and through that property to get up to where I hunted for years.
Yeah.
And I would see them out in their yard sometimes, and I would wave.
Yeah.
And there's never once even cared to let me know that deer of mine in the velvet was in there.
So the guy that gave me my buck, this guy's name's Troy. He's the best dude ever.
Troy's are usually pretty decent.
Troy's a good guy.
They're decent. They're decent. And
that's a good name.
So I asked him. He asked me. He texted me. He said, "You drink beer?" I said, "Yeah, I'll drink a few beers every once in a while." I said, "What do you drink?" And he said, "He goes, I only like the finer things, Natty Light. That's what I like." I said, "Okay."
Yep.
So when I went over to get my buck, I brought him 4 30-packs of Natty Light, and he was tickled to death. And now, he's a great dude, and he's a hunter and everything. Yeah. But here's just a crazy story about that. So, he found that deer it was his son's ladder stand where he found this deer, and his son got killed in a car accident 2 years ago. And his son was in his early 20s, and he found the deer right there. So then when I went and picked up the deer, him and I were talking. I said, I never got a picture of this deer, knew about this deer or anything until October 12th. And he said, really? He said, well, that's when my son was killed, was on October 12th. So it was a couple weeks later, and him and I were just BSing, and he said, hey, have you ran a tape on him? And I got my mask screwed up on it. When I first measured the deer out, I scored the deer out at 191. And I was like, oh, gosh. So, and I just scored him out, and then Troy had texted me. He said, did you score that deer out? And I said, yeah, I scored him out at 191. He said, he picked up the phone, he calls me, he goes, dude, that is the weirdest thing. I said, why? He said, my son was killed on County Road 191. What the fuck? And I was like,
what'd you mess up on your math?
I don't know. I went back and I don't know what I did. He was 186. He wasn't.
That is weird though.
Holy crap, dude.
But it was so odd, and that's what when he said that to me, he goes, I think we were meant.
Yeah.
And I do believe that, and he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And I really want, and he's a deer hunter. He's not a big buck hunter or anything, but I do want to try to help him get a good deer this year.
Tell you what, that's pretty. There are some things that are absolute. Like people say it, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, but that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
You get things like that, and it's like, I got no explanation.
Yeah, it was odd. It was so odd.
Yeah, like your math error entering that when you saw that deer, like there are things that add up like that, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah. But I honestly did not think I was going to get that buck back. When I heard it was found, I was like, yeah, I'm probably not. I'm going to give it a shot, and see what happens. And I mean, immediately he goes, "Hey, I watched that video. That's your deer. You gotta come pick him up."
Mm-hmm. That's the right thing. That's the right thing to do.
Still some good people left in the world.
There are.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure.
4 of them right here.
Yeah, 4 great guys right here.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Don't you guys feel privileged though, like with some of the people that you've met along the way in your travels and through the industry, and I mean there's a lot of really good hunters that are good people out there. I do believe.
Well, it make you guys glad to know that, like, of the whatever we've done, 203 or 4 podcasts, a lot of those are people we've never met before, but just had heard, friends of friends, or just could tell, like, man, that's somebody we want to talk to.
Yeah.
Very, very few, like I could count on this hand, how many of them were like, I was like, wasn't quite what I expected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all of them I've been like, that guy loves it. Yeah.
And I would say 98% of them, like, from that moment forward, now we're just in constant communication.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dude, we've made so many friends. It's wild to look back, like, we're in our 4th year of the podcast, but it's just like, it's like our lives have been changed probably just by the people we've met through the podcast.
Well,
for sure.
Jared and Jeremy were a big part of us getting with Hoyt.
Yeah.
I give them the credit. They reached out to me, Jared did, and said, "Hey, Troy." We talked a little bit off after I did that podcast with him, and it's the reason why I was able to move forward and get a hold of Eldridge and, the Hoyt guys, and it's because of him. So it's just,
I know.
It's like dude, like good people helping good people out.
Yeah.
And it benefited 30 of our staff.
I was pumped.
It's awesome to see it here. Yeah. I mean,
I was pumped when Jeremy mentioned on the Cam Haynes podcast about adding us to the staff and stuff this year.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty cool.
But that all started with a conversation of us guys from getting to talk to you guys.
Yeah. Well, from the partnership standpoint, we're talking earlier about, like, we're also like, man, I don't want to, the sponsorship dynamic is like, it could be weird. We're like, we don't want to taint it with a paid partnership or something like that.
Yeah.
But having had a few, like the Lone Wolf partnership and the Hoyt partnership, it's like, those are some of the best things that have happened because of that. And so we are actively seeking those opportunities, to work with people we want to work with. And it's really cool to see the network grow. And, like, there are, natural alliances, I think, that form over time.
I was excited when I heard that you guys were joining the Lone Wolf brand. And I was like, yeah, these guys fit. Because I would listen. I mean, I've listened to most of your podcasts and stuff like that. And you guys, you get it. You're one of us. You're ate up with this stuff, and it's what we live for, and I mean, it's all we think about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, for sure.
It feels right. Yeah. Dude, when we sit obviously with you guys, and even sit with you talk about Andre's judge of character. He sat right where you were sitting yesterday, and, like, I'm a lot younger than Andre, but the passion is the same, and it's cool to get that affirmation, to sit in his living room and his couch, and for him to look at me and me be able to tell. He knows that we freaking get it, and, like, we love the same thing. It's like, this is where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't fool the old dogs that have done it a long time and that have that passion, because you can't fake that stuff.
No.
And it's liberating for Jeremy and I to feel like, because there's other things in life, in business, you're like, well, fake it till you make it. But it's like, this is the one thing. It's like, dude, this is who we are.
It's authenticity.
So it's like, we're not faking anything. You know what I mean? Let's just be ourselves, and it's like, this is our favorite thing to do,
Yeah.
Cool, boys. Well, we appreciate you guys coming on and sitting down and talking to us today. We're going to go get some lunch and enjoy the rest of the Mobile Hunter Road Show. But I'm sure, obviously, we'll stay in touch. And I guess, anybody listening or watching, you guys, are you dropping episodes for Addictions now?
We dropped one this morning. And so we have 18 total that we're dropping this year. So,
and are most of those, like, through the fall, or how's it? Yeah.
It's going to be every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. on YouTube. That's when we're going to be dropping them. So
awesome. And then everybody's filming this year.
Yeah, everybody's filming this year, and and the other thing too, and we talked about this earlier, is addictions is still too about the average guy out there that wants to, if somebody else wants to contribute some footage and jump on board, feel free to reach out to myself or Troy. And
what's the best way? Instagram?
Probably Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the handle?
Well,
go ahead, buddy.
What's yours? Mountain Man.
I'm MTN_man, Mountain Man 33.
Mine's Mason's Dad, 1975.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they can always get on the addictions page anytime.
Yeah,
cool.
addictions page as well.
And we need to thank you guys. You guys, we talked about this 6 months ago, 5 months ago, whatever. Just quite a while.
You guys changed the date just for us.
We changed the date and for this.
I forgot about that.
And they changed it for us, for us three.
Yeah.
Like literally so that you guys could make it, and so I wouldn't miss my opener.
Yeah.
So
pretty cool.
So Andre did that for all of us.
Pretty freaking awesome.
But you guys drive all the way out here.
Yep.
You guys give us 2 full days of just at our help, at our beck and call. You guys are meeting everybody, but you're also providing this platform.
Yeah.
So it's a really good partnership.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks. We really appreciate what you guys are doing for us too.
For sure.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's
hard to believe 4 years later that we'd be sitting in the den of the lone wolf.
I remember hearing the rumblings
right.
of even Troy Pottenger. I'm like, oh, Troy Pottenger, like that's freaking dudes. I remember hearing like the rumors, and then to call you a friend and sit here on the couch. It's cool to see the full circle, and also Hollywood here too. So we're at the start of ours. So.
Yeah, man. Well, we appreciate everybody listening to this episode with Troy and Justin, and we'll catch you all next week.
Later.
Take me